I have never seen King of the Hill, and I think it's time to change that. So sit down, grab a beer, or propane if that's your thing, as I watch through all 269 episodes of King of the Hill. It was the year 1995, where one cartoonist from Albuquerque, New Mexico, had found himself at the top of the entertainment world. See, just 2 years prior, he had released his first show, Beavis and Butthead, focusing on a pair of slackers as they go to school, work their dead-end job, watch TV, and most importantly, try to score. It was an immediate hit, the main characters becoming some of the most defining icons of the decade, and so, naturally, everybody wanted to see what its creator, Mike Judge, would do next. Mike Judge is such an interesting creator, as he's a cartoonist who's never felt trapped within the medium of animation. Him directing a handful of live-action films that wind up being cult classics like Office Space and Idiocracy. He even managed to later translate the format of Beavis and Butthead into a feature-length movie to massive success. But quite possibly his biggest work came in the form of a project he started only a couple years after Beavis and Butthead took over the world. Despite growing up in New Mexico, Judge had since then moved to Dallas, Texas, where he'd have an idea for a new show altogether, a show that would take great inspiration from where he now lived, and the people who inhabit it. A show that would eventually become King of the Hill. Starring Hank Hill, a patriotic, true-blooded American family man who shared a lot in common with an existing character from Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, I tell you what, you can lead a jackass to water, but you can't make him drink.
I was born in Texas, I'll die a Texan, and in between I'll live in Texas. The show ain't moving, and that's final.
As the show sees him struggle to adapt to the ever-changing state of the world. But he's just an average Joe who spends his time drinking beers on the sidewalk with his friends. What can he do? He can't even control his crazy family. His confident and loyal wife Peggy, son Bobby who, and I quote, ain't right, and live in East Luan. The general setup for the series most often had Hank be confronted with something out of his comfort zone, as we see him try to desperately gain control, or perhaps, change for the better. The series was a huge hit on Fox, perfectly fitting in with The Simpsons and Family Guy, while offering enough to stand out on its own. See, unlike those other programs, King of the Hill gave something a lot more down to earth, less cartoony and focusing more on the very simple slice of life, down to the most mundane situations. Although it's gone on for 270 episodes, and so I'm curious how much of that will change by then. That's right, King of the Hill stands as one of the most successful cartoons of all time, running for 14 seasons lasting from 1997 until 2010. People speculating it was cancelled to make room for the Cleveland show, which, yeah, that sure went well. But like everything that was popular a decade ago, not even Mike Judge could escape the temptations of a modern revival. We first saw this with Beavis and Butthead, which was already briefly revived once back in 2011, before making its proper return in 2022, with another movie and series, which is apparently pretty popular, still running to this day. I have to assume due to the success of bringing back Beavis and Butthead, on top of strong streaming numbers, on top of everything being a fucking reboot now, we saw the return of the King of the Hill. Only a few months back, with Season 4 dropping on Hulu back in August of last year, as well as Season 15, 16, and 17 being renewed for the coming years. And so in this little gap, I thought it would be the perfect time to catch up. I barely paid attention to King of the Hill while it was airing. I was glued to Sky during the evening for Simpsons reruns, and at night it was BBC 3 for Family Guy and Comedy Central for South Park. By the time I started paying attention to Fox, the show had already been cancelled. That's not to say I caught no episodes. I'd wind up watching one or two while waiting for another show to come on, but I think when I was younger, its slower, more quiet formatting didn't grab me. Especially with its focus on a lifestyle I was not grown up around. You ever see a sidewalk in the UK, you'll get stabbed before getting the chance to crack open a beer. I've seen the pilot 1,000 times, me trying to marathon the show and giving up more than I can count. But I do recall a brief period during COVID where I got through the entire first season. But that was like 6 years ago. I'm more than ready to finally jump in with an open mind and see what I've been missing all this time. So without further ado, I think it's time for me to finally rank and review all 269 episodes of King of the Hill. Starting with... Like always, a great pilot should aim to do two things. One, naturally introduce you to the main characters in the world they inhabit through a baseline narrative, and two, leave the viewer wanting more. And it's because of that I think the pilot to King of the Hill is fantastic. It does an amazing job at bringing you up to speed with all the characters who will play important parts in future episodes, namely Hank's aforementioned family along with his core group of friends, Bill, Deal, and Boomhauer, while still having its own self-contained plot that you can enjoy outside of the context of it being a pilot. In fact, I've caught this one playing on TV a bunch over the years, but never knew until way later it was the first. Which means it's done a good job. This episode introduces us to Hank Hill and his trademark temper, giving the townsfolk the impression that he beats his son, Bobby.
Hank is as gentle as a lamb.
No more bouncing that ball!
It's funny actually, the plot of this episode shares a lot with the Simpsons one that found itself at the bottom of my entire ranking a few years back. With Bobby now beginning to take advantage of this by abusing the fact that his dad can't get mad at him. Where this avoids the issues of the Simpsons one though, is them making it clear this is Bobby taking advantage of this newfound control he's never found himself having before. In comparison, Bart is always a troublemaker, so seeing him not give a shit at the sight of his dad literally himself feels to be funny. Kinda goes without saying. This episode does a great job at showcasing that the control Hank has over his family is just a facade, an image he consistently feels to upkeep, making his anger seem a lot more justified, him using his loud, hostile personality to desperately try and regain any semblance of the traditional conservative values he feels are owed to him. Even giving us a glimpse at how this is a result of the way his father treated him. They really cover all their grind to make you understand why each of them act the way they do, even if what they're doing isn't necessarily right. This was a really great pilot, one of the best I've looked at in this ranking series so far. The show also has an awesome intro, but I feel like you don't need me to say that.
Bobby, honey, what do you know about sexual relations?
I don't know. I'm a little worried about being a slut.
Our second episode sees Peggy, who's a substitute teacher, agree to take over Bobby's sex ed class, something that greatly upsets Hank. I love him not wanting the school to teach him about this stuff, feeling as if it's something that should be privately discussed between a family and their kids, yet he also doesn't want to be the one to do it. So far, I'm loving how casual this show is. It's just got such a relaxed vibe, you know? Like, the situations Hank is put through are so life or death to him, but the scenes themselves where he's expressing these views are so quiet and laid back, everyone just offering their bits of input. We get to see a bit of conflict between Hank and Peggy here too, him getting increasingly frustrated at her not backing down from teaching the class, even after they become a laughingstock in the town. It does a good job at showing that despite loving her husband and being somewhat submissive for the most part, she's still willing to stand her ground when it comes to something that matters to her. I enjoy that the episode is more about the build-up to the class rather than the actual thing itself. Honestly, I'm not really sure which I like more, this or the pilot. I could probably say either or depending on when I'm asked, but for now, I think I'd say I prefer this one for the interesting character conflict between Hank and Peggy. Got a really sweet ending too, going at the top of this so far very short list. I love Bobby's stupid fucking face, it just felt like that was worth saying. Before this, we've only really seen Hank's friend give their like-minded insight into whatever he's complaining about that day. At least we're meant to assume Boomhauer agrees, it's hard to tell.
Whack, whack, man. We'd go woo-loo talking about that big mistake, y'all. Just right there in that cooler.
But I'm glad we're already getting an episode that gives them much more attention, with them taking Bobby and the other kids out camping, just like when they were younger. Hank's friends are all very similar in terms of their viewpoints, but I appreciate their differences in personality, like Deal being a conspiracy theorist or Bill very clearly being depressed. They're very fun to see work off each other. I like that all their rules in the Order of the Straight Arrow are very clearly manufactured by their parents to get away with torturing them for a night while they get to hang around and drink beer, yet for some reason Hank still considers passing his bogus tests as something important for Bobby to do. I don't think Peggy's B-plot is as strong, her just looking to buy a pair of shoes. I honestly forgot it was even going on half the time. But overall, it's an okay episode. Bobby accidentally killing an endangered bird and them having to dispose of it without being caught. Some funny moments and a solid ending, but definitely the weakest of the batch so far. I haven't talked about the visuals of the show yet, but I adore the backgrounds, being beautifully hand-painted, especially the landscapes. I love when they go out of their way to animate shadows on the ground during sunrise shots. They're so cozy looking. And the characters themselves are clearly these wonderful caricatures of people Mike Judge has seen in real life. They're so funny looking. I haven't talked about Luann much either, mostly because she hasn't done much thus far, but she's also a fun addition to the cast of characters whose way of life endlessly stresses out Hank, and Brittany Murphy's voice works perfectly for her.
Lay off the gas, Aunt Peg. If I break another nail, I'll fail my manicure final.
Hank not wanting his son to have no goal in life, someone to aspire to be, like his role model, Willie Nelson. This is another really sweet one. I'm really liking these episodes about Bobby and Hank's relationship, with Bobby finding him and having him sign his dad's guitar. I like how well it incorporates itself with Peggy's B-plot where she feels sidelined, him not giving her enough attention. It all comes together greatly with Willie making Hank realize that Bobby does have a hero and that it's him. I'd probably put it right under the sex ed one.
Right and back and split kick left and sideways shuffle go.
Our first Luann episode as we learn that she's been dumped by her boyfriend, who she thought she'd be moving in with. As a result of this, Hank gives her the helpful advice of bottling up her emotions, and actually finds himself being able to bond with her now. It's actually very charming when you forget about that aspect. Things take a turn, however, once Hank finds himself way too involved in her love life, which inadvertently puts her in the arms of Boomhauer. I didn't think I'd like his relationship with Luann so much, but it makes me want to see more between the two. I'm hoping these become frequent pairings, Hank having to finally admit that he cares and only wants the best for her. So far, Season 1 of King of the Hill has only been hitting home runs. Curious to see the show evolve in the second half. Hank is constipated, news which quickly spreads around the town to his dismay.
Now, would that be good for a man who's constipated?
Peggy,
Well, I didn't say it was you.
Is this for your husband?
Yes.
I like that Hank is so unbelievably embarrassed by this, but everybody in the town is just trying to help him take a shit. It's a very awkward episode, nobody respecting his privacy, but it still has a ton of good moments. Overall, though, I end up feeling bad for the guy, and Peggy worrying about him dying so much is just kind of depressing. I'd probably consider this as one of the weaker episodes of the season so far. I'd put it above the camping one, but under the pilot. A new neighbor moves next door to Hank, him being disappointed to learn that they're Louisian. I'm actually surprised that Hank is the most tolerant one of their new neighbors, the Cons. If anything, they're the ones intolerant of everyone in Arlen, considering them nothing but redneck hicks. He's put in an awkward situation where he's forced into being nice to the man out of threat of being considered a racist, when he just doesn't like him because he's a dick. Well, okay, that is until their dog goes missing and he assumes they've eaten him. Yeah, okay, that's a little racist, sure. It's one of those big misunderstanding situations where everything the family now says just so happens to point towards them having eaten their dog. But I like how mundane the ending is, with them quickly forgiving each other and becoming buddies. All in all, it's an alright episode. I enjoyed it well enough. Already time to meet Hank's dad. Wasn't expecting this so soon. He's a dick. I appreciate how naturally they've been expanding Hank's relatively small world. And we haven't even seen his work selling propane and propane accessories yet. Hank invites his dad, Cotton, and wife to live with him to the annoyance of Peggy, as he starts teaching Bobby all his misogynistic viewpoints. It's cool getting to see more of Hank's past. Again, reinforces why he holds the views that he does. Kinda sparks the question of whether or not he necessarily even agrees with them, or if it's just all something he's been made to believe. It's nice seeing Hank stand up to his father despite the discomfort that comes with that. This is another solid episode. Gonna be dropping it around the middle of the list so far. Okay, this is one of the only other King of the Hill episodes I've seen, and yes, it's because of the YouTube poop.
Would you like for me to find your name in the next Boggle? Boggle?
Boggle. Okay.
Honestly, it makes it kinda hard to watch as its own thing. It's weird hearing half these lines not get repeated 5 times each in rapid succession. Anytime someone says the word boggle, I just sit there trying not to laugh. Peggy enters the state Boggle Championship. Just so happens it's the same time as a motor show, with Hank posing as her Boggle coach, so he can sneak off and attend. It's probably the funniest episode so far, and not just because they keep saying the word boggle. And Luann and Bobby freaking out over causing the most minuscule of messes makes for a fun low-stakes B-story, going in the upper half of the ranking. Hank catches Bobby smoking a cigarette, which leads to this iconic moment.
Now look here. You are gonna smoke this entire carton.
This is honestly pretty crazy. There is no way in hell something like this could air today. The whole situation leads to Hank falling back into his addictions, which then leads to the entire family getting addicted to them. Some really impressive shots in here, like that massive pan out to a bird's eye view, then back into Bobby at the other side of the house. That was super cool. Smoking cigarettes isn't really as popular as it once was, especially not when this episode was made, and so it stands as a neat little episode that couldn't really be done today. A really funny one, too, as they all try to once again beat their addictions, going near the top. With this episode, I noticed the intro got longer and added that little bit at the end with the logo. Still a banger, I'm not complaining, but I wonder why they did that. Hank is jealous of Khan's yard being better than his, which leads to him noticing an infestation of ants. And right when the big Cinco de Mayo house party is coming up, oh no! Honestly, knowing it was Deal who planted them there makes him, well, a cunt. I didn't really care for this one. It's not bad or anything, but out of the lot, it's definitely one of the weakest. It's just Hank trying to protect his lawn, followed by Deal further fucking with it. Not really into it. I'd take it over the camping one from earlier, but other than that, there's not much I enjoy about it. I also find Bobby thinking he's being mind-controlled by the Ant Queen to be a pretty Liam B plot. Meh. Finally, the season concludes with Hank being excited at the thought of Bobby finally going to a party with girls. Although the joy quickly fades when he falls in love with a mannequin head. It's okay, not bad at all, but there are definitely much better episodes in this batch. There's some funny moments here and there, but I can say that about any of these. It's charming how his relationship with his head actually does start to give him confidence to talk to women. You know, at least before he starts to use it as a crutch. But that's all I really have to say. Fun end to a very good season. And that's season 1 of King of the Hill. And damn, what a strong start. Despite the weaker ones coming towards the end, that doesn't change the fact this was a string of quality episodes. I love Hank as a protagonist. He just wants peace and to enjoy what he enjoys as the world constantly gets in his way. But I also find myself loving the rest of his family too. I don't think there's a single character I dislike other than, I don't know, maybe Deal, but maybe it's too soon to call it on that too. This first season was a massive hit, getting pretty stellar ratings and rave reviews from audiences and critics alike. I'm really shocked so many people find themselves gravitating to such a low-key show, but I can see why completely. It just oozes charm. I'm looking forward to seeing how much they further expand and delve into these characters in the world as we now approach season 2. So what are we in for this season?
Where's the children's gun section?
Yep, more of the same. Not that I'm complaining. As we see Hank realize that a deep-seated traumatic childhood memory is affecting his abilities to fire a rifle and needs to find closure before the big father-son tournament. It's another great opener that showcases that a majority of Hank's problems come as a result of him being unable to open up. With a surprising but welcome guest appearance by Wallace Shawn, a lot of funny commentary on gun safety, with a super sweet ending, and a small but noticeable redesign of the characters, making them a lot more realistically proportioned. And that's saying something. How to fire a rifle without really trying isn't as strong as the best of Season 1, but it doesn't seem like the series has lost any of the momentum it had been building by the end of last. It turns out that Luann has a trailer she could have been living in this entire time, which motivates Hank to fix it up and kick her out, although things escalate when a massive twister traps her and Peggy inside the thing. It's an episode that further delves into his unwillingness to show care for her, but you can tell it's just because it makes him uncomfortable, not because he doesn't have those emotions. It's cool getting to see more of Arlen too. The show has felt fairly self-contained as of now, so it's neat seeing more of the average town folks. Got some stellar visuals too, even if I do think it's overall a weaker episode than the previous.
Don't play mind checkers with me, man. I'm not in the mood.
Look, we're both reasonable people.
You said it, friend.
Dude, Hank just can't catch a break. All he wants to do is brag about his fucking yard work tools. But things can just never go his way, bro just wants to grill. He finds a secret arrowhead, which he's conned out of giving up for $10, which leads to some guy digging up their entire yard to look for more artifacts. I wasn't too into it, honestly. The professor is such a douchebag, and it really showcases how ignorant Peggy is, clearly not realizing this guy is screwing her over and paying Vic compliments. I know that Peggy is like one of the most hated mums in adult animation, and so I can start to see how pushing this dumber and naive aspect of her personality will make her, well, annoying. As is, this is probably my least favorite of the show so far. But that's not to say it's bad. There's still plenty of funny moments, just the weakest of a good run.
Whatever it takes to make you feel good about yourself. Mr. Hill, violence doesn't solve anything. So why don't we just discuss this like...
First holiday special already, damn.
Oh, my, aren't you boys the scariest?
Yeah, man, talk about wah-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Dang old boo, man.
It's Halloween in Arlen, as this Christian lady gets in the way of Hank's fun by convincing everyone it's a demonic holiday. It's a low-stakes special, but still very entertaining. It's nice to see a more mischievous side of Hank. We haven't seen much of that thus far. The guy just wants to have a good time with his fucking son, let him. I love the orange skies we see throughout. It really sells the fall vibe. Going right under the season premiere. Okay, I was not expecting this to be a plot. Hank unknowingly buys crack cocaine instead of fishing bait and now has to clear his name before he's sent to prison. I know I keep saying it, but I really can't get over how every episode of this series is just Hank getting the short end of the stick in every situation he's put in. I feel it takes a tad long for Hank to learn the truth behind his newfound fishing skills. I don't think it needed the whole intro segment, even if I do understand how it leads into the turnaround of him being the one caught. And the absurdity of the situation makes it more than worth watching. You know, I didn't think I'd see an episode where Hank just casually haggles with a drug dealer. It's another really good one, going right under Halloween. After Bobby finds the confidence to model for a clothing line worn by fat kids, Hank starts to worry that the whole situation will just cause him to get made fun of. I like, again, that this all stems from Hank and his friends having been the people to bully the fat kids when he was younger, with everyone else actually being pretty impressed by Bobby's new career. This is an all-around solid episode. I think the Halloween and Rifle ones are better Hank and Bobby relationship dramas, but I appreciate this one tackling things from a more shameful angle. You know, it's all an issue that only exists in the guy's head, making everyone miserable with his constant attitude and acting like he knows best, something he, of course, has to eventually get over. Or not. In fact, Hank is proven completely right. He would have been made a fool out of, and so Bobby learns his father knows best. I mean, I guess I appreciate them wanting to break from the usual formula, but... The members of Green Day guest star as a local garage band that's been pissing off Hank and his friends. A lot better than their Simpsons cameo, I'll give them that. Can I nominate this as cringiest way to open your movie ever? It's a basic setup, but it's fun seeing Hank's aggression be targeted to a group who actually kinda deserve it. Especially with such a petty situation. All he really wants to do is beat them at their own game and prove they're not old losers. It's another where you actually feel bad for him and want to see him succeed. The humiliation of being beaten completely traumatizing him and his buddies. Some really neat bits of animation here too during his nightmare sequence. I don't think we've seen King of the Hill get quite this off-model thus far, but it's great. Not the craziest episode we've seen in Season 2 so far, but there's a lot of fun moments. I especially like the ending where they realize all they have to do is win is understand the mindset of a teenager. That being, don't play by the rules. It's great.
Let's see, they give you kids guns and let you shoot at each other? Yeah, okay.
Bobby and his friend Connie get in trouble at school, which their teacher believes stems from the friction between Hank and Con. This leads to them sneaking off to spend the afternoon together. I really enjoy their friendship and the implication that things could possibly go further between them, as well as the subtle rivalry between Connie and Bobby's other friend, Joseph, who convinces them to check out this creepy Kiev system, even if they quickly move past it. I really wasn't feeling this episode in the first half, not gonna lie. Maybe it's simply because of how half the time is split between this and the parents trying to find them, which I didn't personally find too entertaining, but I love what they do with Bobby and Connie here. Joseph and her start to bond more, which creates this insecurity within Bobby, which is all but proven correct after seeing the two holding hands and hugging. You feel bad for the kid. It's interesting seeing them put him in these slightly more adult situations and his complete inability to react maturely. I wasn't expecting to, but I wound up really enjoying this one. It was nice seeing Hank and Con bond by the end too, even if I imagine they'll go back to hating each other next episode. One of my favorites of the season. Opens up a lot of dynamics I'm excited to see them explore in the future. Hank is chosen by his boss to sell some propane to a new big country club being developed. But sucking up to Mr. Holloway means leading into his stereotype as a dumb old Texan.
Yo, man, call Dr. Scholes, man, 911, man. Y'all look like a dang old horse caught right with that old crap, man, yo.
It's a neat position to put Hank into, especially given how patriotic he is. And Billy West does a great job at selling the out-of-touch big business guy. He's so obnoxious, to the point where I don't think I'd ever have any interest in watching this episode again. You kinda get the idea by that first half, Hank's lies continue building and building, putting his own self-respect on the line to one-up his old co-worker, who wants to steal his deal. And his breaking point just doesn't feel extreme enough to warrant putting his own pride aside for 22 minutes. Going right above the Arrowhead one. Bobby wants to join the school wrestling team, however, Peggy is distraught to learn he's got to go up against Connie to prove himself. I like that this is an issue that completely exists within Peggy's mind. She was the one to convince Connie to join the fucking team, going on and on about girls being able to do whatever a boy can. It's especially funny that Bobby and Connie don't really give a shit by the end, the pressure removing all the fun out of it with the parents and other students caring way more about the result of this match than they do. They just want to hang out together. The resolution is solid, using the fake wrestling moves they learned while playing the video game during the first scene, which allows them to finally just have fun. It's a good episode. Probably not going to end up near the top or anything, but I liked it. First Christmas special right here. King of the Hill celebrating with Hank having gone blind after witnessing his mother having sex on the kitchen table. Happy holidays! Neat finally getting to see Hank's mother contrasting well against Cotton, she's just a nice lady. One that Hank is extremely protective over, which makes sense considering how his dad treated her. It doesn't feel like much of a Christmas special, really could have taken place at any time of year, aside from the whole, mom's new boyfriend being Jewish thing. But I don't know, I just fucking love his goofy-ass face while blind. I mean, it's not completely unfounded, they do put an uncomfortable amount of detail on those close-ups of intercourse. Looking forward to seeing them do a more appropriate Christmas special in the future, one that actually has something to do with Christmas. But it's still a super funny episode with a heartwarming ending where Hank learns to accept his new dad. One of the best of the season so far. And again, only half of that is a result of how doofy his fucking face looks. Hank gets a depressed Luann some puppets that she uses to create her own Christian puppet show, Meet the Manger Babies. Luann really hasn't had much to do thus far, but any episode with her has been a real treat. She's just such a harmless character just wanting to make a fun series for kids, just because she wants to. I think that's what King of the Hill really does best. I can't really say there's been many laugh-out-loud moments I've witnessed so far, but each episode, even the lesser ones, have been infinitely charming in the way the characters interact with each other. Hank deciding to help her out with her series even though it doesn't really benefit him other than feeding his ego, I guess. And her being so happy about it that she's casting him in the role of God. This episode really highlights how much Luann was designed for Brittany Murphy, her voice actress. She steals the show here. Not the greatest episode out there, but one of the most purely delightful. I really do enjoy these Hank Luann outings. I'd say I wish they did more of them, but it makes them more special when they do appear. Hank starts to question his faith in propane and propane accessories after learning that his boss Buck Strickland doesn't even use one himself. It builds up to this more so being treated as a straw that breaks the camel's back after he was overlooked for taking care of the company while he recovers in hospital. But I don't know, I find this one quite uninteresting. Given the relative severity of the plot, I would have expected more. The company needs Hank's help to survive, and he remembers why he cared so much about selling propane in the first place. The people. The ending almost seems like it could have been its own episode altogether, him wanting to start up his own general store before he returns to his old position. Meh, one of the more forgettable ones. What a weird idea for a Valentine's Day special, not that I'm complaining, it's very unique. As Peggy is distraught to learn that Hank missing their first Valentine's date together wasn't because of an injury he suffered, and instead, because he had mono. Now Peggy has to find out who Hank was kissing to get this disease that's caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. That's who he was kissing? I think I prefer Bobby's B-plot where he completely fails to recognize that Connie likes him while bragging about his secret admirer note. It's got quite a funny ending.
No!
Your grandmother loves you.
I get why Peggy would be so upset, desperately trying to find the girl he made out with, especially since this happened so soon before they got engaged, but for her to continue being so furious, especially after learning it wasn't even something he directly did, makes her seem a bit unreasonable even if he did feel to tell her the truth. Still a fine episode, lots of good jokes, just another case where I can see why fans would eventually grow to hate her as a character. He makes a pretty great effort to apologize, but it takes her friends having to tell her how much he's done for her to finally accept it. Damn, that came this early? I've seen that gif. The Hills agree to join the Khans on a vacation to Mexico. The two families butting heads immediately, especially after finding out the condo was a lot smaller than anticipated. The change in setting is appreciated, offers a bit of variety, and helps the episode stand out well amongst the rest of season 2. Everyone's got something to do. Hank and Con, who like always start to Wait a second. Con is an anagram for Hank. Huh. Peggy worries that she's too naive. Deal's here too.
I was never here.
Oh, guess not. But overall, it's one of the most memorable, even if just for the change of scenery and cementing how much I hate Con. He sucks. Hank and Con once again collide as they collide, literally, after he fakes an injury after they crash, and Hank has to go to traffic school to avoid his insurance going up.
You're ethnic. Joseph and I are just nothing. We're just white and boring.
Maybe it's just a result of it being placed right after that Mexico one where Hank also fucked him over, but I wasn't really all that interested from the get-go, even if it does quickly divert. Chris Rock starts to mentor Bobby in the art of stand-up comedy, which leads to him trying to find a source of comedy within his own roots. Not sure how this results in him performing a series of white nationalist jokes in front of a crowd of primarily black people. It's probably one of the edgiest segments they've had so far, but it doesn't go overboard with it. And I enjoyed the resolution they came to at the end. I liked this one, going around the middle of the list. Hank discovers that his credit is bad due to the rental store accusing him of never returning a porno.
Bobby, for the love of God, get out of the house! Okay.
It's another non-stop Hank humiliation ritual, him being put in a database that continues sending him this smut, making him be seen as some kind of degenerate amongst the town. It's one of the funniest episodes of season 2, seeing how far he'll go to not pay the $40 to stop all this. That alone is enough to put it near the top of the list. You know, it's like a better version of that crack one. But the ending having him study and learn everything there is to know about these pornos to prove that he had never rented them in the first place made for a really funny conclusion. Honestly, this might be my favorite episode of the show so far. I liked it that much. If I could only recommend one episode of King of the Hill to someone so far, based on what I know, I think I'd pick this one. Hank's dad loses his driver's license, which leads to Dale letting him move in, becoming his caretaker out of respect for the veteran. I don't really give a shit about Dale, I definitely don't give a shit about Cotton, and so I just end up feeling bad that Hank has to put up with all this. And not in a good way like the last one, kinda wish he'd just tell him to fuck off. It's so annoying that it almost ended with him getting stuck in a home, we were so close. Obviously, like, the show's gotta keep having conflict, so we'd of course have to see him again, but aside from that introductory episode, I really don't like these Cotton ones. He sucks. Leanne's saga this time around. Wait, who's Leanne? Luann's mother comes to visit after finally getting out of prison. I love how much build-up they give her reveal. Almost every character knows her and knows how horrible she is. You've seen this story before, that take her in, you're almost convinced that she's changed for the better, before she once again falls into her bad habits and disappoints her daughter yet again. I like everything they do related to her new relationship with Bill. Things starting fine, even if she does take a slight advantage of him, but once she starts drinking again, things quickly start to get abusive. It's a sad episode. I feel bad for Bill, especially Luann, and even Leanne to an extent. You can tell she started by genuinely trying to make a change, even if it didn't last long. Addiction's hard. I should know. I'm addicted to Five Nights at Freddy's Theory videos. And crack cocaine. One of the more real ones of season 2. I thought it was really strong. Especially the end with Peggy stepping in to stop her. One of her best moments. Hank would rather hire a drug addict for a new role at Strickland than a qualified woman. Ew. And now he has to deal with the consequences as he uses a loophole to get away with not doing any work while being unfireable. I find it to be a rather uninteresting one, at least compared to the rest of the bunch. That's something worth mentioning. Aside from the Cotton one, each episode near the bottom of this list are still alright. What the fuck is going on? Each episode near the bottom of this list are still alright, filled with charm, grit jokes. There aren't really any episodes I'd consider flat out bad so far. They're just like, I don't know, not as good. Junkie Business is okay. It's a funny idea for it to lead to all the employees taking advantage of this Disabilities Act, and I'm glad it ends before it gets too obnoxious. Still though, going right under the middle. Everyone's getting a fucking saga. This time it's Bobby's turn as he gets a job at the racetrack and struggles to convince his dad that his boss is a psychopath.
What do you think the average salary is in this country?
Well, Jim Carrey makes $20 million a movie.
It's funny that all Bobby has to do to suddenly enjoy his job is to have a can-do attitude about it, which only leads to him being treated worse and worse. Nowhere near my favorite, but it's another good one. Hank and his buddy's race and B-plot also offers a bit of fun to break up how depressing Bobby's situation is. Was also surprised to see Dale Earnhardt cameo, but like, yeah, no shit, that shouldn't have been a surprise. That makes like the most sense ever. Peggy decides to become a stay-at-home mom after Bobby gets misdiagnosed with ADD. Everyone treating him like he's crazy is great. Peggy making him 3 different expressions of egg and bacon to suit his mood. And the way they convey how his medication is affecting him was really well done. I find Peggy's arc interesting too, trying to find a hobby to add some kind of outlet in her housewife life. I really liked their conflict here, Hank being happy things were starting to take a step backwards before Peggy began spending more time away from the family due to her lack of support and self-expression. Her not even understanding the meaning behind her cry for help song that she writes until the last second. I loved this one. Don't know if others feel the same, but I find it to be one of the best of the season for how it further explores her character. And Season 2 concludes with our first 2-parter, although that means we're not going to find out what happens in that second half until Season 3. Hank finds out that the Megalomart is starting to sell Propian, which threatens Strickland, being unable to compete with their amazing deals. It's a relatively high-stakes scenario for the show, the Propian branch he works at closing down and him needing to find a new job to make ends meet, causing him no other choice than to get a job at the place that put him out of business. Seeing Hank in such a soul-crushing position does result in a lot of great gags, mainly him having to deal with all the dumb teenagers who work there, although I'm a bit unsure of where this is gonna go, as we end on one of the biggest moments in the series so far, the Megalomart suffering a Propian explosion while Hank and Luann are still inside. Guess we'll find out.
What did you just say, Bill?
And that's Season 2. Not drastically different from the first by any means, more so refined. The secondary cast are given much more to do. We see Hank in a series of crazier situations. It's a great season of TV. I can see why the show continued to take off, becoming one of Fox's flagship shows. Now I am just curious how Season 3 will proceed with this. Will it be business as usual? Or will it try and take any of these characters in a direction we haven't seen yet? I guess we're still very early in though. We're not even close to episode 50, so I think there's still plenty of time.
Your dad got blown up.
Hank made it out fine, although all of Luann's hair has fallen out. And her boyfriend fucking died. She's much more concerned about the bald thing, though. It's an episode all about grief and the way different people handle it. Luann turning against everything she once stood for and enjoyed, clearly not acknowledging her feelings, while Hank finds himself being unable to get past the trauma of the situation, becoming deathly afraid of the one thing that used to be the source of his happiness. Propian. Obviously, they use this for a lot of humor, but I really appreciate how real it gets at times. He's not just afraid of Propian, he's afraid of death and it cripples him. Khan's story at the funeral was also presented in a really cool way. This was a wonderful opener, I loved it.
There are whole villages in Ireland where children are too busy sewing whooshes on tennis shoes to run away.
It's true, it was either that or Minecraft Let's Plays. I think I made the right choice. Sarah Michelle Gellar guest stars as Bobby's crush, being an older girl at his school.
That means when she was 3, our Bobby was only 1. It makes me sick just thinking about it.
Surprised to see them stick with Luann still being bald. I'm curious if this is going to last all season or we'll see it slowly come back each few episodes. This one's not really about that though, it's mainly about Bobby. Him quickly thinking she's his girlfriend, which makes Connie jealous. I liked how this redirects focus back onto Hank and Peggy, her realizing that he's unable to publicly show affection for her. But not much is done with that. She breaks up with him and it becomes more so about him trying to get over her. It's another one of my favorites. Season 3's really starting off strong. Oh, it is slowly growing back. Neat. Peggy starts to seek the help of Deal's wife's, migraine treatment guy, which stresses Hank out as he fears it may lead to the same type of migraine treatment that Nancy gets. This is Deal and Nancy's son, by the way.
Good God!
It's funny, this is something everybody except Peggy was aware of, and this has been such a long-running gag throughout the entire show that it's shocking to see an episode actually put some focus on it. Peggy feeling stupid being the only other person to not know about it, and Hank and his friends not knowing whether or not it's time to get Deal involved. The situation quickly gets complicated, her finally realizing this is something she can't take part in. Of course, they decide not to change the status quo, which could be seen as a bit of a cop-out, but they still did a good job at leaving you wondering up until the last second whether or not they'd go through with it. Hoping Season 3 keeps up this winning streak. Hank decides to finally breed Ladybird. Kinda forgot they even had a dog sometimes. Which starts to upset Peggy after learning he wants to get her impregnated through a test tube, something Hank himself was unwilling to do before they had Bobby. Paired with a fun Deal plot where he becomes a bounty hunter, which somehow integrates itself with the main story quite well. It's a solid episode. We also learned by the end that the two of them might want another baby, which I'm like 99% sure doesn't happen at any point in the future, so I wonder if this will be brought up again. Guess we'll see. Anytime I have to type a title and see the word shin, I groan at what's to come.
That's a cute baby, I tell you what.
We're trying to have a baby ourselves.
Oh fuck, okay, we're following up on it immediately, sure, I'm down. After being told that his sperm count is low, Hank feels emasculated to learn his father has gotten his wife pregnant. Another Hank humiliation fest as the news of this quickly spreads across the town. Definitely not as strong as the porno one, but there's still a ton of funny moments that caught me off guard. When Hank tells his dad to watch his mouth because there's a child present and he responds by saying, "She can hear this, she's my wife." My jaw was dropped, one of the funniest episodes in a while, and probably the second strongest Cotton one, mostly due to them slightly toning down his more obnoxious traits. Slightly. Okay, so here's an episode where I can see people either sympathizing for Peggy or absolutely hating her, as she joins a beauty pageant that she's clearly not capable of winning.
Oh, I'm not planning on buying it. I'm planning on winning it in a beauty contest.
Test drive's over.
Her ego really shines through, believing she's a shoo-in to be crowned winner, before confidence is quickly shattered after witnessing the other contestants. You feel, or at least I feel, genuinely bad for her, until she starts taking this frustration out on her family, especially Bobby. She's awful to him here. Again, I feel bad for her, realizing that she won't win the pageant due to factors completely out of her control, fearing that she's past her prime. I don't think I really agree with the sentiment that she goes into the realm of unlikability, at least not more than you're already meant to feel towards her. The lowest of the season so far, but it's still pretty quality. Cotton shows up to Thanksgiving dinner and makes a fool out of his ex-wife, Hank being unable to stand up for his own mother. But karma quickly swerves back round when his dad infiltrates the mower focus test he was excited for. It's another where everyone gets something to do. Peggy ruins her chances to get in on the Black Friday shopping, while Bobby tries to help Luann get over her dead boyfriend, something she clearly still hasn't come to terms with. Of course, the focus is more on this 12 Angry Men homage, Hank unable to accept the changes being made to his favorite mower, and having to convince everyone else to agree in time. I don't know if this will be controversial, but I honestly think I liked the Peggy pageant episode a little more. It's still good, I just didn't think it was funny enough to make up for the somewhat sillier plot. Feels like aside from the premiere, this season hasn't been focusing on Hank and Bobby nearly as much, so I'm glad to see her return to it here. Especially in such a real way. It's hunting season and Hank is worried to take him on the big 2-day trip because, well, he doesn't know what he's gonna talk to him about. Kinda comes out of nowhere considering there have been quite a few episodes so far where Hank and Bobby have spent extended one-on-one time together, but still, it's a wonderful idea. Again, it's an issue all in Hank's head. Bobby doesn't feel this way, he likes spending time with his dad. And I like the ending a ton, definitely did not go in the direction I was expecting it to, but it's very sweet. If things keep up, I think it's safe to say that Season 3 is their best yet. Okay, fucking hell, time for a tonal shift I was not anticipating. It's almost Christmas Eve, also known as the anniversary of the day Bill's wife left him. This year, things are especially depressing, as Hank finds him trying to kill himself, their group now needing to take turns watching over him constantly to ensure he doesn't do it again. They do play it for laughs most of the time. It's trying to toe a fine line between tackling the subject seriously while still not making it too much of a downer, and I really can't say they fully accomplished that. Definitely leans more into fucking creepy and miserable.
They won't let me have a knife. I'm in the middle of killing myself. Do you like iguanas, Mrs. Tobis?
He goes crazy, dressing up as his ex-wife, believing he is his ex-wife, and it's just sad. Still though, that's not to say there aren't hilarious moments, even if it is partially a result of how depressing the rest is. Certainly makes the jokes stand out more. And no matter what you think, I don't think there's any denying this isn't one of the most memorable episodes so far. I appreciate them taking such an extreme risk, really feels like a landmark moment in the show. Going near the top. It's a Rashomon-style episode this time around, which helps make an otherwise uninteresting story stand out a ton. We see each character recount who was responsible for burning down the firehouse during their first day as a volunteer firefighter. Again, King of the Hill is a much more grounded show than the likes of The Simpsons or Family Guy, and so it's a lot harder to have stories where Hank quits or gets fired and starts a new job as an X, Y, or Z. And so this kind of thing is a clever way around that, us getting to see just how incompetent they are and how their constant bickering caused all of them to play a part in it burning down. Takes a while to get to the Rashomon part of it, more so them recounting it as a unit for the majority of the thing, before the last third when it's time to pass the blame. But still, decent episode. Boomhauer's story was the best.
Man, no dang old boy ain't right. Man, I'm gonna talk about no kicking them dang old ass. Man, I don't know, take... For God's sakes, Hank, act like an adult, man.
Senor Dooley, venga.
You're dead.
En español, por favor.
Tu eres muerto.
Much simpler dilemma this time around, as Peggy starts to be seen as an extremely strict substitute after she hits a student. With these Peggy episodes, at least so far, I find they do a good job for the most part at making her justified in her decisions, this happening after an important inspection that she feels, with the rest of it showing her embrace this paddlin' Peggy persona. I like that Hank is the one who's against this. You think he'd be for those traditional values, but no, he remembers how it was getting corporal punished when he was a kid, and so he doesn't think it's right. Also, if any of you have ever, been to a school, you know the torment these substitute teachers face. We had a kid in our religion class literally airdrop the teacher pictures of literal shit while she screen shared her iPad to the class. She cried multiple times that year. I feel kind of bad in retrospect.
We drove 2,000 miles for this?
That's not from this episode, the opening just reminded me of it, so... Hank is upset to see Bobby has joined the soccer team, with the worst thing imaginable. A PC coach, voiced by Will Ferrell for some reason. Got real Beavis and Butthead vibes from Hank's childhood coach returning too.
I'm gonna chew you up, spit you out, take a big dump on top of that, and then I'm gonna get tough!
Do you think that's funny, Butthead? Do you find it amusing that we'll be talking about the penis?
But another super funny one. Surprised I really haven't felt too negatively about any of these so far. Look, I tried drawing Hank Hill while watching this one. You know, Hank really doesn't say, "That boy ain't right," as much as I thought he would. I mean, it's like the thing, the quote, right? I thought that, was his fucking catchphrase. Not that strong of an episode compared to the rest. Hank gets fired by spreading his company secrets to Bill, and fights the guilt that comes with that. Idea itself is fine, but given the plot, I was surprised at how little I found funny in here. Probably going at the bottom for now. Matthew McConaughey guest stars as the new man in Luann's life. Only issue is Bobby has taken a liking to him as well. And so after they break up, it makes him so mad that he starts fucking with her as a prank war between the two of them starts to escalate.
12 years old and drinking a beer?
I didn't even like it.
Well, now you're just trying to get me mad.
This gets Hank so frustrated that his punishment, and I can't believe this is really where it goes, Hank gets so frustrated that his punishment, he forces Bobby and Luann to get married. What? Bobby switched out her birth control for Candy, and now she lies and tells him she's pregnant, and so Hank furthers it by claiming now he needs to marry her, but Boy, they go through this for an uncomfortable amount of time. Takes him out in a fucking bachelor party as he just sits there with the biggest frown on his face. It is miserable. Again, though, it's very funny, so it just barely gets away with it in my opinion. Their whole friend group just decides to join in on fucking with this 12-year-old. They got nothing better to do with their weekend, and Hank and Peggy deciding to lie to Luann and tell them that they now are legally married for a full year was a good twist to end on. Great episode.
Those aren't blotches, they're clouds.
Huh?
Why does he sound so genuinely disgusted by this? Hank feels slighted as Peggy assists the magician in his act, but won't tell him how the trick works. It's amusing seeing his mind get so occupied by something so meaningless. They try to use this to pull the angle of, Hank isn't mad about the trick, he's mad that his wife knows something he doesn't. Especially since for a majority of the episode we are just watching him try to discover how the trick was performed. Maybe if the episode had started with a segment showcasing an example of Hank not letting Peggy have her privacy, would have hit a bit harder. That he's so controlling he can't even let her know a fucking magic trick. I think this is the most extreme instance of them arguing too, the constant belittlement of one another. Again, I can't believe this is all over something so insignificant. I liked it though. Fitting that their argument just kinda ends, the two realizing what nonsense all this is.
We're gonna be late for church.
I'll be right there, honey.
Okay.
Luann gets Hank a gift to spend time with a dolphin. It molests him. Not the kind of place I was expecting this plot to go, only confirms that Hank can have literally nothing in his life go right. But it's another great one of the season's best. I know someone who also very much enjoys this episode is Billiam, from youtube.com/c/Billiam. So here he is.
John Vitti Presents Return to La Grunta is one of my favorite King of the Hill episodes. I just think it hits so many notes that makes me love the series as a whole. This episode is fantastic. I love how it parallels Hank and Luann's situation, with Hank experiencing a more absurd and embarrassing version of Luann's events. But Hank doing right by her is a part of a show that I think is just as important as his relationship to Bobby. It's funny and absurd, but the small victory Hank gets for Luann at the end ends up being heartfelt. It's just a great episode.
Betty White guest stars as one of Hank's mother's friends, along with a whole slew of old ladies. Him having to take them all to see some glass miniatures and getting stuck on the island with them by rowdy spring breakers. It's entertaining seeing Hank in such an intense situation, having to deal with a spectrum of people he doesn't like, from the young and annoying to the old and boring.
Delia was right. Hank, you are impossible.
Which one of you is Delia?
She is.
I could commit you like that.
Peggy's subplot is strange, Bill being way more open about his obsession for her. Curious to see if anything more comes from this later on. Overall, an okay episode. Probably gonna go towards the bottom half of the list.
Excuse me, sir, did you throw out your elbow playing golf or tennis?
Tennis.
In the strangest callback they could pull, the X-ray of Hank's colon from the season 1 episode where he couldn't take a shit becomes the centerpiece at an art museum. I like Bobby's B-plot more, him being worried about the upcoming dance where he's expected to kiss Connie. Builds well off the previous Bobby relationship stories. Last time he got with a girl he had his heart broken, and so he doesn't want to ruin the friendship they already have. Gets gut before any of this can happen, which embarrasses Hank. Honestly, these two stories have nothing to do with each other, they are so disconnected. Maybe it's Hank not wanting to be defined by something like that, contrasting Bobby being so open about his gut, I don't know. Bobby eventually admits that he's using his gut as an excuse for getting out of taking her to the dance, which he counteracts by inviting someone else, and so he goes there to apologize and fight for what he wants. It's good. His struggles getting to the dance was really well conveyed.
See, I'm gonna do a big shot from up here.
Hank tries to make a promotional video for Arlen in the hopes of convincing the Dallas Cowboys to move their training grounds to his hometown, but finds himself constantly frustrated by the incompetence of his friends and family. I'm not sure how this would solve his issue of kids wanting to move out of town, but still makes for a decent time, I guess. The gang decide to take Dale's new mower, after he won't stop gloating about how awesome it is, which makes him go crazy trying to discover who stole it.
What are you looking at?
Your fly is down.
It's my yard.
Okay, I said this earlier, but Deal has a ton of great and hilarious moments throughout this show, but I do not like him. He is such an asshole. Saying that, I really liked this episode. Probably one of the funniest episodes in the entire series as of now. There are so many moments that had me laughing. It kept going in directions I was not expecting, especially when Peggy decides to join in on the joke. I was not anticipating to like this one as much as I did.
All right, I was going to have Jane Fonda observing the autopsy. What do you think? Is that too much?
Cotton gets blamed for burning down the church when in reality it was Bobby's fault, and so now he's got to decide whether or not to come clean. It takes a little long to get to the point. I honestly didn't care for it too much. It's just 20 minutes of beating Bobby into the ground. But Cotton taking the heat for it does make me like him as a character a tiny bit more. Not terrible, but one of the weakest of season 3. Peggy gets used as a cocaine mule for a convict who pretends they were an old student of hers. How do they land on these ideas?
Sorry, Bobby, but I guess we're just gonna have to murder somebody if we want your mom's attention.
Okay.
It's like a more insane version of the one where she's tricked into believing the archaeologist guy. But they drop the act pretty quick, him saying he'll throw her under the bus unless she keeps bringing the coke. I like that he does this through taking advantage of her love for Boggle. Good episode. With a ranking this long, especially with a show I'm so unfamiliar with, I thought it would be cool to invite some people on who know this show way better than I do, starting with my pal and big King of the Hill fan Johnny, who will be joined by his 2 cellos. He's here to talk about this next episode of Wings of the Dope.
Wings of the Dope is one of one. Obviously, King of the Hill is about as grounded in reality as you can be for an animated show. It doesn't often deal in anything fantastical or supernatural without proper explanation. But Wings of the Dope is the single episode that I can think of that embraces something inexplicable, that being Luann's visit from Buckley's angel. Now, sure, they maybe leave enough room for interpretation to say that maybe this is some kind of coping mechanism from Luann here, but the episode plays it pretty straightforwardly and to great emotional impact. But beyond this being a unique episode, this is a culminating episode that really completes a season-long arc for Luann. Luann has a really hard time coping with everything this season, and the episode brilliantly ties up that storyline while also propelling Luann's character towards an exciting new future. And that is all facilitated through Luann truly accepting and moving on from Buckley, both her grief from his death and her anger and frustration from him being a less than stellar boyfriend. But it is really that emotional impact I mentioned that hits so well for me with this one. I love King of the Hill, but there is only one episode that makes me cry, and it happens while 2 characters are jumping on a trampoline of all things. The emotional nuances in Brittany Murphy's performance here as she realizes that this really is Buckley's angel, the first real expression of joy we see from the character in basically an entire season. That damn Life in a Northern Town song just kicking in, really ramping up the emotionality. I don't know, man, this just fully breaks me. But I like that while this scene is this amazing emotional peak, the rest of the episode is this valley of despair. Everything is going wrong in Luann's life, and she clings on to this religious experience with Buckley's angel as her only real bastion of hope. But this faith is misplaced and basically prevents Luann from being able to put in the effort or dedication to move forward of her own volition. And I just love this as a representation of grief, whether that's the grief of losing a loved one, grief of losing a relationship, or in this case both. When we hold on to our past, hold on to the things that we've lost this tightly, it keeps our hands occupied. It prevents us from grabbing the new opportunities that present themselves. This entire episode, Luann is holding on to all of her former notions and perceptions of herself. She's been pursuing beauty school since she was a child, but she is miserable in her class. There is this really lovely moment towards the end, after she crashes her car in a sleep-deprived state, where all of these girls from the community college help her, thinking she's a classmate, and Luann simply realizing that she could be perceived as a college student completely changes her own perception of herself. Suddenly, she sees herself as somebody who could be a college student. She stops holding on so tightly to this one part of her past, and she decides to grab something new. The final scene showcases Luann's growth so beautifully, as Buckley's angel asks for one last kiss, and she rebuffs him with a classic Buckleyism. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this episode, All About an Angel, really hits differently now, as it's one of the best showcases of the late Brittany Murphy as Luann, as well as one of the best episodes written by the late Johnny Hardwick. Wings the Dope is not just one of my favorite episodes of King of the Hill, it's one of my favorite pieces of animated television.
Thanks, Johnny. I haven't listened to your audio file yet, but I'm sure we agree completely. It was good, right? Hank and Peggy are yet again pit against each other as she joins his company softball team and gets all the glory. All while Bobby and Connie try to deal with their new status as a couple. It's strange to pull the angle of her being embarrassed by him all of a sudden. The opinions of others was never something she seemed too concerned with before. But it's a new side to her dynamic we haven't seen yet, which is cool. Overall, though, I find it to be one of the least memorable episodes of the show so far. Again, though, it's crazy that no episode has been bad. Season 3 closes with the beginning of another two-parter. This one sees Peggy and Hank worry that their scene is too old. It's pretty sad, her realizing that she's long past her prime, and I like how real they get with each other around the halfway point. Getting fucked up together and just being completely honest about their feelings. We rarely see them this open. I appreciate the slower pace it has. And Bobby and Luann's B and C plots were a fun reprieve from how depressing the stuff between Hank and Peggy is. Interested in seeing where things go in Season 4?
Peggy?
Oh, that's where it's going. Season 3 of King of the Hill saw a similar amount of praise to the first two, although a time slot change wound up briefly affecting its casual viewership. I'm not sure what fans consider to be the best, but this is my favorite season as of now. The worst it has to offer is just kind of forgettable. Like Hank's cowboy movie wound up landing itself at the bottom of my list, and that is not a bad episode at all. Richard Apple, took over Mike Judge's spot of co-showrunner. And I'd say the shift is noticeable, but not jarring. Feels like he's inserted a slightly more cartoony edge to the series that I think works really well. It helps that it's very subtle. He wrote a lot of great stuff in The Simpsons, some solid Family Guy episodes. Also co-created The Cleveland Show. Can't have everything. Either way, I'm curious to see if this slightly less grounded tone will be pushed even further as we head into Season 4. It's the thrilling conclusion to that. Here we see Hank deny being the one to push her into making the jump, which I don't think he should have to feel guilty about. How could he know this would end up happening? But I guess it's a mandate that every season premiere has to feature Hank being traumatized in some way, shape, or form. She feels useless, especially with Cotton, his girlfriend, and their new baby staying with them. It's kind of a depressing opener. Just about everyone is miserable, and Peggy being treated like a baby only makes her feel worse. Makes for an interesting issue, and there's some amusing moments here and there, but I find the resolution to come a tad quick. She makes the baby stop crying and realizes that she's still more than capable. Probably the weakest premiere so far. I really love how much they've been embracing the light continuity. Us opening on Peggy getting off her cast and Cotton still living with them. Fun way to make it feel as if the show is continuously evolving. You know, it's not episodic, but each episode can still be enjoyed in a vacuum.
Colonel, I think the baby's crying.
A good job. Those parenting classes are starting to pay off.
Thank you.
Peggy struggles to deal with her life confined to a wheelchair as physical training begins. However, surprisingly, she winds up preferring Cotton's more aggressive ways of motivating her. Turns out this whole time Cotton has been a complete fraud, all those stories of his time in the war being a complete fabrication. It's a cool reveal, but I'm mostly interested in seeing if this will affect how the other characters treat him in future episodes. Like, will people continue to pretend his accomplishments were real? I don't know, I haven't watched yet. Pretty decent episode right here. Really salvaged by how unlikely this pairing is, but still so far nothing that matches the highs of Season 3. We're only 2 episodes in, to be fair. Bill's high school football record is broken by a new student, which completely shatters him, Hank convincing him to get back in the game to try and reclaim it. I like that this is not simply due to pettiness. You know, the kid was practically handed the record, makes sense why he'd feel cheated. Honestly, I like that it's Hank who convinces him to do it, feeling so bothered by this on behalf of his friend, knowing it's all he has. Also fits his character being someone obsessed with the rules and fairness. Relatively low-stakes episode right here, but one I enjoyed a ton. That scene between Hank and Bill at the football field really ties it all together, gives things a bit more weight, and it's nice seeing Bill get a win for once. Best of the season so far. Peggy becomes jealous of Hank this time around as he takes 2 weeks off work and becomes the new beloved temporary woodshop teacher at Bobby's school. I could not give less of a shit about Peggy here. She's offended that Hank doesn't want to take her teaching advice, and gets jealous because of some stupid popularity contest award she wanted to win. Then, she manipulates the kids into voting for her, and Hank is too content with himself to even notice. I like that Hank genuinely enjoyed spending the time with his class, and the class genuinely feeling inspired by Hank. You know, Peggy sucks in this one hard, but it doesn't take away from the charm that comes with Hank finally having a bit of fun. Good episode.
I'll see you tomorrow back in class, Mr. Hill.
Get fucked. While on vacation, the Cons leave Connie at the Hills house, which causes Bobby to overcompensate and act more mature than he actually is. However, things begin to grow increasingly stressful for him as she begins acting highly emotional. And even worse...
Mr. Hill, I just got my first period.
I like that Hank makes the situation infinitely worse for himself by refusing to get help from someone like his mom, with Peggy eventually having to step in to explain the situation to Bobby. This season's just getting better and better, another very low-key episode, but the characters and their extreme personalities clashing is where things truly shine. And Hank coming in at the end to soothe a miserable Con was great. Hank gets the chance to be sent to a Dallas Cowboys game in New Orleans to try and win $1 million. I like that it's about him letting his pride almost get in the way of him getting a guaranteed $100,000. And I enjoy that we see him contemplate whether or not to go through with it while spending time with Bill's family, who they stop by to see on the way. Turns out his relatives are rich, which was a fun twist, and Hank choosing to let the guy take the throw, and he misses, was a hilarious ending. But I also surprisingly find myself just as entertained by Bill's storyline. Another great episode. Another special. This time it's celebrating its place as episode 6-7. Hank and the family leave for the airport to spend the holidays with Peggy's parents. Really captures the pure hell that is going to the airport during the holidays. The insane crowds, the ungodly delays. You really feel for him. Another episode that does a great job at giving each character something to do, even if minor. Bill, Deal, the Cons all get their moment. And it's got a nice ending where they all decide to make the best out of a bad situation. Season 4's been using the secondary cast to great effect so far. I'm liking characters like Bill and Deal way more than I did previously. Looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
We don't need Hank. We are two beta males at the top of our game.
Hank meets a man who is just like him, Hal, voiced by Drew Carey. It's oddly charming seeing him feel so much gratification towards such seemingly innocuous interactions. This causes Bill and Deal to grow jealous. Their codependent relationship with Hank is something I think I'd usually be against, given how exaggerated it is here. But I don't know, it's funny enough for me not to care. Again, I love how envious they are of such a mundane friendship. Starts a little slow, but honestly, if it keeps up, Season 4 just might end up being my favorite of the entire show, at least as of now. Bobby befriends a raccoon in the backyard, which winds up scratching Deal as well as their dog, Ladybird, and so now they gotta find and take him to the vet for his shots. It's got some good and some sad moments, mostly seeing how much Hank loves this fucking dog, but overall it's one of the weaker of the season, going towards the bottom. As the turn of the millennium approaches and everyone is in a panic over Y2K, Hank finds himself a lot more concerned with the current propane shortage. It was alright. This leads to Hank going full psycho, getting rid of his tech, and stocking up for the end of the world. Weird, this is how they choose to spend their Christmas special, but it remains a fun little time capsule of a different era. It's like how we're gonna look back at COVID episodes 20 years from now. God, I'm glad this show was not on the air during COVID and we had to have the fucking COVID King of the Hill special, but it remains timeless through its good message of how it's better not to live in fear. Everyone's known about the millennium for almost a year now made me laugh way harder than it probably should have. Peggy gets in trouble for helping Bobby on his homework, which is honestly completely deserved. He gets away with it at first, but Peggy causes it to be exposed out of jealousy. God, she sucks in this episode. She genuinely expects him to give her credit for writing it. She's a fucking teacher, she'd have to know that doesn't fly. Overall, it's just kind of a nothing episode. Peggy is forced to write an apology and read it out in front of the school, and so she tries to come up with this elaborate scheme to avoid taking accountability, and continues to make things worse. Probably my least favorite of the season. Another Hank and Bobby episode. Feels like it's been a while since we've seen one of these. As he's upset that his son wants to become a rodeo clown. I was fairly bored. You've seen this a million times. You've seen this in King of the Hill a million times. It's like a less interesting version of the Husky Bobby one, except he actually goes through with it in the end.
And it keeps him away from the video games. He was playing this Tomb Raider game where he was a girl.
A mid-season two-parter, there's a shock.
Therefore, I am now going to drive over there, baby. Oh, I just had phone sex.
Hank's boss gets very publicly divorced, and gives the Hills ownership of his barbecue joint to get out of the way of sharing it with his ex-wife, who has now taken over Strickland Propane. She starts trying to seduce Hank, which we know he would never go through with, but it more so focuses on his uncomfortability with the whole situation. It's like a better version of that Family Guy episode where his boss harasses him. Instead, we see Hank get tangled up in their whole messy situation, each party trying to use him in some way for their own advantage. Can't really be viewed without the second part, so it's hard to judge on its own as the cliffhanger has Peggy find Hank's ex-boss's mistress dead. But so far, it's looking to be a pretty good set of episodes. Interested in seeing where it goes next? It's time for Who Shot Debbie Grund. Hank is one of them, especially since he gets high by smoking drugs and leaves his lighter at her house. Seeing Hank freak out while high has been a highlight of the series so far. Him being so worried that someone will find out while getting completely clotheslined when he learns he is now a suspect in murder. The stakes have never been higher. I find it to be a very engaging mystery. You don't really care for Debbie, so you spend your time more so concerned about Hank proving his innocence, not trying to find out who the real killer is. It was accidental suicide.
I'm too high to drive.
No, I don't know if it's because I'm too high while watching this, but that run made me laugh. Why did he flail his arms like that? Joseph struggles to cope after Bobby accidentally sees Luann naked, which causes a mishap that leads to Connie breaking up with him. Kinda awkward, the only thing that can clear things up with her is to admit that he was watching his cousin in the shower, but he wasn't. He was stopping Joseph from doing it. That is a very easily said sentence, I just said it. I'm glad they moved past it by the halfway mark, as Con walks in on Bobby and Connie doing stuff.
Well, that boy's gonna get a talking to, I tell you what.
Meanwhile, Boomhauer needs rescuing by Deal and Bill after he gets put in an insane asylum. They somehow make it work without it feeling too outlandish. He winds up in a new city and nobody can understand a thing he fucking says. It's good, I like how gradual they've been with Connie and Bobby's relationship. Probably gonna wind up around the middle of the list. Luann gets sick of having to deal with Hank and so rents the house next door, taking in 3 roommates from her college who annoys the hell out of the gang and steals their iconic spot. They're annoying, and she doesn't want to admit they're annoying, and that's it. The conclusion comes a little quick, and the guy bothering Hank doesn't really make for a great B-plot. Things don't reset at the end, so I wonder how often we're going to see her in the future. Bottom of the list. Peggy falls for, and then makes Bill fall for, a pyramid scheme, taking advantage of his surprisingly solid SEALs abilities. Peggy is just kind of unlikable here, and not in a fun way. She wants to do this because she loved managing people as a restaurant owner back in that 2-parter, but as we saw, she wasn't even very good at that either, so you wind up just wanting her to be knocked on a peg. I think I said that already.
It's family conversation time. Who are we kidding?
A lot of what people hate about Peggy could be so easily solved if she just wasn't written to have such a massive ego despite having, no real achievements. Unless you want to count Substitute of the Year 3 times in a row. I don't. Not awful, but I don't think I'll ever feel the need to watch this episode again. She realizes that she can use him for whatever she wants, as long as she's mean to him. It's super forgettable. Bobby thinks he might be the reincarnation of an ancient Buddhist. Pretty crazy, but it makes for a solid episode. Peggy uses this as a reason to brag. Hank tries to put a stop to this nonsense, and Bobby begins to worry that if he is the llama, then it means he can't be with Connie. I enjoy everything with their relationship. They're very fun together, but all in all, it'll probably find itself around the middle of my list. Got a sweet ending.
I'm getting chocolate milk if I sit still.
I love all his stupid, disgusted noises. After getting a Johnny Test haircut from his regular barber, and getting one from Bill, he winds up getting him fired after complaining about it costing him $900. Fun seeing him get so many minor changes to his hair, but everyone acts like it's the biggest deal ever. But Bill getting fired comes in so late that not much can really be done with it. Nice ending, though. His old barber is played by the Flying Dutchman, and the guy from 17 again, don't remember his name. Deal, Luann, Bobby, and some of Hank's co-workers for some reason decide to form a sketch comedy troupe called the Propaniacs.
The baby asked you for a diaper, Mr. Pee-Pee Poo-Poo Pants. How about it?
Neat getting to see a bit more from these characters we typically only ever see in the background. There's really not that many secondary characters in King of the Hill. Curious if they'll ever add more in the future, because I can't really say any of his co-workers left much of an impression on me. Hank finding Bobby genuinely funny was a cool surprise. Probably the highlight of the whole thing. Another solid one. Nancy finds herself falling for Deal all over again, and decides it's time to break things off with John Redcorn. It's an interesting place to take this, especially since things don't reset by the end, even if it is more of his decision than hers. I mostly liked getting to see more of John Redcorn. He's just a chill guy. He and Deal are friends now. Hank joins the local zoning board after installing a crappy low-flow toilet, and finds out just how hard it is to make a meaningful change when corrupt people are in power.
Sounds like someone should run for mayor. I mean, you are the smartest man in town, Dad.
Bobby blackmailing Khan is an entertaining B-story that I wish we had gotten to see more of, especially for such an uncommon dynamic, but it feeds back and escalates the main conflict in a good way. I feel to mention this for 4 seasons, but I like Bobby's Bart Plesh. Yeah. That might be one of the worst titles I've ever had to witness in a ranking. I have to read that aloud later, don't I? It's exactly what you think it would be from reading a title like that. Peggy's unusually massive feet finally come to good use as a man begins taking photos of them for his foot fetish website. Okay, like, you don't have to out yourself, make a burner or something if you want, but if you have a foot fetish, does this make this like the best episode of King of the Hill ever for you? Answer below.
Hank, he may even distribute it on the internet.
The internet? Well, tell me, does a big movie star like you still like her steaks?
They made an actual website based off this. I mean, it's not up anymore. Redirects you to a sports website that looks like it'll give you a virus. Although if you're looking at Peggy Hill's feet, then maybe you deserve a virus. Season 4 closes out with Peggy believing that Randy Travis stole some song lyrics that she wrote years ago. This has been a big Peggy thinks she's God's gift to the world kind of season. Just starting to piss me off. Probably the weakest season finale of the whole show so far. 2 of the others were multi-parters, so of course they were going to have a grander feel, but it's just Peggy being delusional for 20 minutes, which was kind of funny back in the first or second season, but again, at this point, you just want her to get a reality check. Was actually happy to see Hank finally call her out.
And now you say Randy Travis has taken your childhood and calling it his own. It's getting crazy.
So now I'm crazy?
Well, it's gray area.
They all think she might try to kill the guy, which she acts like is outrageous, but like 5 minutes ago she walked away while he was drowning in a lake. Okay, that's just a joke. Could you imagine? You know, I've heard enough times that fans consider 2 and 3 the best of the show, but for me at least, I think Season 4 is the clear winner. The worst of it is just stupid fucking Peggy episodes, but I'll happily put up with it for the best we saw here. Some of my favorite in the entire show, and that first half of the season is incredibly consistent. Great episode after great episode. Really feels like the writers find their groove with these characters. I think it's where we see all of them at their best. Again, this is a season that made me start to like Bill and Deal. I didn't think that was gonna happen. I would say I'm hopeful for the future, but I have heard this is where the golden age ends. I've seen some people say it goes as far as Season 6, but I guess we'll see. But I'll be happy even if it's half as good as Season 4 was. Fifth season opens with a really funny idea, as Hank meets George W. Bush and is horrified to learn that he has a weak handshake, and now he's unsure of whether or not he wants to vote for him.
It's limp!
Luann falling for a communist was not something I expected, but I really like how it adds more weight to the main issue. I like that she could have easily been convinced to vote for Bush instead, but this fucking handshake is just the worst thing in the world to Hank. Season 5 is starting off on a good note.
Tommy, go home.
Okay.
Bobby starts picking up some of Buck Strickland's bad habits after becoming his golf caddy over the summer. Honestly, I wasn't expecting it, but I preferred Peggy's dumbass B-plot where she and Mrs. Khan start competing to see who can donate the most blood. They literally have no reason to want to do this other than moral superiority. Bobby's stuff wasn't all that funny or interesting to me in comparison. He realizes the guy is a jerk. Yeah, no shit.
Just the two of us?
Huh?
Give your mother a chance to recuperate?
Okay, maybe I spoke too soon before. Because here we have, I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. I want to know right now, will it be sorry, do. I'm almost impressed. Bobby's birthday, however, the attention is all on Joseph, who clearly hit puberty over the summer. It's funny that this is just how Joseph is gonna look from now on. He's so much fucking lankier. It's a very good episode. I like that the characters are allowed to get older as the seasons go on. Does a good job at creating new, slightly more mature conflicts for Bobby. Also, this is such a nothing thing to point out, but look at these frames of the characters outside at nighttime. Doesn't the way this was colored kind of make it look like it could be a screenshot from Scooby-Doo Zombie Island? Is that just me? Bobby decides to boycott Thanksgiving after learning about the Native Americans having their land stolen. I prefer what they do with John Redcorn, him feeling upset that he's missing out on a relationship with Joseph, his son, obviously. Definitely a highlight of the season. Probably their best Thanksgiving episode yet. Brendan Fraser guest stars as a star high school football player who Peggy gives a feeling grid to, which pisses off all the other teachers and Hank, who's got to find a way around her decision. It's a very mediocre episode as we see Hank be punished for her decisions. I'd watch the principal reacts over the real one any day.
You got two messes to clean up.
Okay, this is really, really bad.
Cotton returns, him being rejected the time off work so he could march in the Veterans Day parade. Turns out he lost his HICID and needs to get a degrading dead-end job. But fuck, I just do not care about the guy. It might be the most uninteresting episode of the entire show so far. I'm surprised Cotton was actually considering killing himself by the end, but what does it lead to? He agrees to let Hank lend him the money for the foreseeable future. Wow. I find myself actively waiting for it to end. Bobby becomes the school's football mascot, but doesn't want to experience the halftime tradition of everyone beating him up. I wonder why. Bobby looks funny in the mascot suit, but it's not ideal, right? I don't know, is this normal in American sports? Either way, it's funny to see the entire town, even his teachers, start to bully him for his cowardness. Third Christmas special, as Bill gets so lonely during the holidays that he decides to open his own Christmas village in his yard, and being so desperate for some kind of connection that he becomes the surrogate father to some random criminal. They really just do whatever they want with these holiday specials, don't they? Not that I'm complaining, I'll take these ideas over a Christmas special where Hank can't get Bobby what he wants for Christmas and has to tell him that Santa's not real, and Bobby has to deal with the reality there's no magic in the world, but it ends with him getting exactly what he wanted for Christmas, and Hank looks out at the night sky and sees a sleigh and reindeer flying away. I don't know why I got so specific, but that sounds like one of those crappy Christmas specials, right? It's probably one of the best of the season so far, but it's a shame it gets resolved in such a lame way. He finds himself meeting a woman who actually likes him, but he just completely self-sabotages by not dropping the Santa egg, which of course freaks her out. Again, it's not much of a Christmas special, but honestly, these Bill episodes are easily becoming some of my favorite. Weird considering he's such a one-note character. I feel bad for him. Peggy misinterprets Hank crying at a sad movie, thinking it means he's sad he doesn't spend enough time with Bobby, when in reality, he was just crying about his truck breaking down.
No, man, a little squirt gun, man.
What?
Well, Hank.
It's funny how much he drags his feet in the mud about admitting this. I thought this was a great episode, really hilarious. And the ending where Hank has to do the impossible and drive a different truck to save his son during a storm was the perfect way to close things out. One of the more emotional moments of the series, and it was executed incredibly well. I think I preferred the Joseph one a little bit more, so it's going right below it. Hank is absolutely devastated to learn he can't get a native Texan license plate after learning that he was actually born in New York. It's the end of the world. Don't really care much for Cotton taking over the plot, where he and his friends take Hank out for a night to frame him for murder. It's mostly just funny seeing everyone act like this is the biggest deal in the world. Hank being deeply ashamed and feeling unworthy of his status as a Texan. Okay episode, gonna put it around the middle of my list. By that second half, I just completely drop off. The gang head to Austin to celebrate Bill's 40th birthday. However, things take a turn after Hank unknowingly shows his ass to the former governor of Texas, who winds up falling in love with Bill. Wasn't expecting it to lead to him fumbling things after his ex-wife steps back in the picture. Didn't think we'd ever get to see her. And it's entertaining watching Hank in a setting where he's supposed to be having reckless fun with his friends, and finds it hard to let himself run wild. And Peggy and Bobby's B-plot where they realize just how good charcoal burgers are and have to hide the truth from Hank was a nice break from all their relationship stuff. This was a simple but very charming episode, one of Season 5's best. Bobby gets a ventriloquist dummy, which terrifies Deal and Hank falls in love with, due to his sports knowledge. One of their sillier episodes, but I liked it. Seeing Hank and Bobby bond in such an unconventional way is wonderful, even if it does start to make Bobby sad that his dad seemingly cares more about the puppet. And Deal's twisted flashback to his childhood was really well done. I love the colors, going above the middle. Renee Zellweger guest stars as Tammy, a prostitute who's hired at Strickland and moves into Hank's house, with Peggy and her becoming good friends. Peggy has had so many insufferable episodes as of late, so it's nice seeing one where she's actually, likable, as she tries to give her a better life.
If there is one thing I know, Hank, it is people, and Tammy is good people.
Also hilarious seeing Hank become what's essentially a pimp, as her old one, voiced by Snoop Dogg, comes to get her back. One of the funniest episodes of the series, although my favorite gag would probably be just how much Hank loves his new hat. Best of the season. Also this frame. Deal quits the extermination business and takes on a new position elsewhere, as a guy who's responsible for firing other employees. It's crazy how taking off his glasses and cap makes him look like the most normal dude ever. Funny seeing Deal in such a bland setting, which makes him completely irritable before fully embracing his role as the bad guy at the company.
People, we have a small insect situation. Please remain... Veronica, you're fired.
It's a cool idea, his wife and friends not being able to look at him the same way, him being so comfortable ruining people's lives. But also, someone has to be the bad guy. But they do a good job at stopping things before he drops further into the realm of unlikability. I like this one, even if the ending is pretty gross. Luann decides to renew her celibacy, which makes Hank happy. Now he's got to become her sponsor, which makes her sad. Wasn't expecting Owen Wilson to cameo as an insecure man that Luann befriends, while Peggy tries to deal with the fact that she hadn't told Hank that she slept with a guy before they got married. Didn't she get, unreasonably pissed off about a girl kissing Hank before they got married? Just food for thought. This is a very solid one, as Rhett tries to ask Luann to marry him so he can finally score. I liked it. Here's my impression of Hank Hill. I'll tell you. Sorry, I did that. Turns out Bobby is allergic to ladybird, leading to him living in a doghouse. He's chill with it though, so it's cool. This is a stupid episode, and I mean that in the best way possible. Everyone is completely satisfied with this decision before they start feeling embarrassed once the neighborhood catches wind. It's such an absurd concept, but it's one of their funniest. Tons of fantastic moments in here, and I love how much Hank adores this fucking dog. Seeing him almost give her up was depressing. Hank learns that Bobby's class is going to drain the quarry, which terrifies him and his buddies, as that's where they crashed Boomhauer's old car in high school.
So help me God. Hey, this isn't the Bible. It's a Harry Potter book.
Instant karma, though, as he's got to pretend he gives a shit about environmentalism to prevent him from finding out. Makes for an okay episode, but definitely one of the least interesting in a while. Go near the bottom of the list. Here's one that has a lot going on, as Nancy turns 40 and gets replaced by Luann in her weather lady job. This leads to her wanting to get a facelift to seem younger, Deal trying to pay for it by suing a cigarette company who then countersue him, which he thinks he'll win by treating his wife as poorly as possible. And so now he's gotta find a way to get her back. Again, a lot going on, but the fast pace works. Especially given how much it escalates with the cigarette company actually being threatened by Deal, which he counters with this crazy plan he doesn't tell her about. It's okay. Deal has quickly become one of my favorite characters, which I was not expecting.
I need my Nancy.
Hank's backstory is a highlight of the season.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
Mr. Hill, you have no ass.
Hank wants to win the upcoming mower race, which is becoming ever more unlikely considering his back problems, which he finds out can be rectified by wearing a prosthetic ass. That's the plot. This has been such a long-running joke throughout the series, so it's fun to see them actually try and do something with it, as he starts going to a support group that raises his confidence and gives him the drive to actually try and win the race. He doesn't. Not the deepest story out there, but it's very funny. I just like seeing Hank happy. Can't believe we're already done with season 5 as we see Bobby pretend to be a high school student with fucked kidneys that stunts his growth. It's crazy. I think this is one of the few episodes of the show I caught on TV. I don't remember it leaving much of an impression though. Doesn't here either. I mean, it's a fine episode, as Bobby gets so caught up in his high school life that he neglects taking Connie to the dance, which Joseph takes advantage of. But it's okay. Okay, season 5, definitely the first dip I've seen so far. Everything before now has been progressively getting better and better, but season 5 definitely doesn't hold a candle to the 4th. It's not bad though. The bottom of my list just being an annoying cotton episode. The bads definitely aren't as bad as what we've seen before, but I think it goes lower for me because the great episodes are also not as great as we've seen. I'm curious if, that's it. That was the prime, already gone. Still got 170 episodes left. So let's see if things get back on track in season 6. Starting with... Dude, I was not ready for this change in art. Like, obviously all these shows I look at go through the transition from traditional to digital, but if there were an art style that especially benefited from a classic hand-drawn look, it was King of the Hill. It's not bad on its own. If anything, I think it is still hand-drawn, at least for the time being, and I'm pretty sure those backgrounds are still traditional, but the frames are clearly being painted digitally. I hear Season 8 is when the major shift starts happening though, so I guess we'll wait and see. Season 6 opens with Bobby signing up for a women's defense course, where all he learns is to kick people in the dick. And so naturally, only one thing could come from this. You don't feel that bad for him since Hank is the one to encourage this behavior, even if he doesn't realize how he's been winning all his fights. And sure, it is just 22 minutes of groin jokes, but they're funny groin jokes, and it's a rarely seen dynamic. Bobby feeling some sense of authority while his dad recovers. Very reminiscent of the pilot. Great first episode.
You left yourself open, Dad.
Deal loses his confidence after screwing up in front of his gun club buddies, and so Hank fakes a mission for him to accomplish so he can get his groove back.
How long we been on stakeout?
3 minutes.
I'm starving.
We'll get a snack after.
I'm horny.
It's a pretty funny one, as he screws up the easiest mission possible and now thinks this fake messenger is trying to kill him and his friends. Although it definitely peaks with his pocket sand bit. Oh fuck, okay, this is the episode. The one that everybody talks about sucking. It's fine. 100%, it's one of the weakest of the series, but if this episode is so hated for featuring Peggy as an unlikable, narcissistic character, Well, then that's every Peggy story. It is undoubtedly those trits pushed to their most extreme, at least so far, as she goes on a field trip and accidentally takes a Mexican kid home, her only being able to get out of legal trouble by admitting she's bad at Spanish, which, of course, she doesn't want to do because she thinks she's fucking awesome at Spanish. Like, yeah, that's annoying, she's annoying, and ignorant, and it is yet another example of Hank having to come save the day while still satisfying Peggy's delusions, but I don't know, it's got a couple funny jokes.
You three better leave before I write you tickets for public drunkenness.
But we're not drunk just yet.
Still an incredibly mediocre episode. Like, the only way they can make the plot work is by making her a complete dumbass who can't comprehend context clues unless they're shoved right in her big fucking stupid, they're making me mad. But if this is truly the worst the show has to offer, then I'd say this is more of a good sign than bad. Also, this one is clearly still traditionally colored, so maybe the first episode was more of a test. I don't know. Cotton is incredibly pissed off to hear Hank declare "I love you" to his boss after a big promotion, which is only the beginning of a series of situations that further cause them to butt heads.
Why did Dad have to act like a woman in front of Grandpa? Grandpa hates women.
Again, I just feel bad for Hank, getting immediately demoted and having to deal with his shitty dad. It gets at least somewhat interesting after Peggy learns this is all because Cotton is jealous Hank didn't say he loved him instead, which results in a good ending, especially for how it relates to him and Bobby. And Jimmy Carter. Alright episode.
And Bobby, that is how I saved Christmas.
She really just does not need to talk sometimes. After Bobby and Connie start abusing a bribe by Mr. Khan to break up, he starts to think that she might be depressed and thinking about killing herself. Now they've got to find a way to get them back together even though they were never split up in the first place. I like Deal's B-plot where he creates a pirate radio station that the townsfolk genuinely listen to and like. Going around the middle of the list. Bobby and Connie are very fun together, they have such an innocent relationship. They just want to fucking hang out. So it's sad to see it has to end with them deciding it's best they split up for real. I wonder if that'll be permanent or if they'll get back together in the near future.
If my dad catches you here, he'll make me play that song he wrote about you.
Fat white lumps about me?
Okay, we're following up right away, sweet. After Bill makes Bobby worry he'll never find another partner again, Hank asks Boomhauer to give Bobby some advice on women. However, this only serves to make Bobby more disillusioned to the whole thing.
You just ask every woman you see until one of them finally says yes?
Shut, man, you gonna tell my secret, man?
It's alright. I like that this all stems from Bill making him fearful for his future. He's a very optimistic and happy character, so it's neat to explore a version of him who's not so confident in himself, and so desperately tries to latch on to Connie again. Another one that's going around the middle. The Winter Olympics torch signing is coming through Arlen, with Hank supposedly ruining the opportunity by dropping it in a puddle.
Bobby, you won! Oh, dang it, I just took our camera in to be developed.
To be fair, Hank, I wrote the essay.
I just wish she'd shut up. I like all the stuff that happens during the build-up. Bobby helping Hank realize that he's allowed to indulge in his happiness when something good happens. But I don't think that Hank needs to feel bad at all for relighting the thing, like he's disgraced the Olympics. Not a fan of the overall package. Alan Rickman is here as Peggy's boss at the Renaissance Fair, who doesn't treat or pay his female workers as well as the man.
We wage war on France on the morrow.
That is so gay.
Something different, I guess. The Renaissance setting helps it stand out, and there's a lot of funny moments, but Peggy thinking she's awesome and being knocked down a peg, I keep having to say that, doesn't make for the most exciting story, even if I think it was smart they made the king as unbearable as possible to make you actually want to see her succeed for a change. But I think I'd rather watch Lupe's revenge, honestly, more to talk about at least. Hank, his friends, and Connie sneak off to Missouri to play together in their newly formed bluegrass band, obviously against Khan's wishes. I like that Boomhauer is naturally a great country singer. Otherwise, I find it to be a fairly uninteresting episode, as Bobby feels left out of the whole thing and Hank starts to overwork Connie, projecting his goals onto her. Going towards the bottom, not a fan of this one aside from a nice ending. Jeff Goldblum stars as It's Just Another Peggy Ego episode.
This Looks like I pulled my thumb off.
She pulled the thumb off!
To be fair, it's one of the better versions of that plot, as Peggy wastes the family's retirement on a scam IQ test and diploma which claims she's a genius, and so now she's got to try and con the con artist to get everyone their money back. I'm glad they don't spend too long on her thinking she's smart, like, yeah, no, obviously not. I wouldn't think very highly of it, but the ending makes it, as they pull off this elaborate gambling parlor trick. The double con was a good twist. Okay, episode. Ugh, I hate these kind of plots. I feel like every long-running cartoon does a story where the old people move into our protagonist's house and cause problems for them. And we've already had multiple episodes with Cotton staying at their place. Having 5 of them instead of 1 doesn't make it better.
It's gonna cost me $40 just to paint over the swastika on the other side.
What to paint over the swastika?
Wow, the King of the Hill boredom helmet. Oh, this is almost as boring as the show itself.
That's a clip from Drawn Together. Summarizes my thoughts on this episode. It's time for another one featuring Peggy's massive ego, as her looking for a full-time teaching position leads to her pretending she's a nun to ensure herself a job. Yet never has a single moment of doubt, constantly trusting her own fucking awesomeness. It's almost commendable, except you just want to tell her to shut up and check herself. I think I'd rather watch this over the Cotton one. I liked seeing Hank so happy to have Peggy working with him, even if it is brief. But this is still a pretty uninteresting episode. Maybe it would have been more tolerable in an earlier season, but we've seen them do this a million times, in increasingly infuriating ways. I like this gif out of context. Bill faces life in prison for stealing a tank after learning the army did an experiment on him that caused his fat and baldness.
Imagine if our boys went into battle with hair in their eyes. They'd be at a marked disadvantage, I tell you what.
You know, I've noticed Hank saying "I tell you what" a lot more in this season in comparison to the other ones. Is that a conscious choice? Either way, the government's plot reminded me of the movie Tusk. It sucks, don't watch it. But it was cool seeing more of Bill's backstory, and it's funny that his friends blame all his problems on these experiments, even the ones that are attributed to his personality. Although Peggy's B-plot where she buys ice cream after ice cream in order to guess the right wit for the sake of nothing but feeding into her massive ego wasn't all that fun to sit through. Going around the middle. Steele finally realizes that Joseph isn't his son. He's actually the son of an alien. And so now he's got to try and find him after he runs away due to feeling like a freak. Cool seeing Bobby and Deal and Joseph and Hank bond with each other. Wasn't expecting a set of parents like this, but it's super charming. A ton of hilarious one-liners in here. I was laughing the whole way through.
You'll just ruin it. Let Hank tell it.
It's my joke, I'm gonna tell it. There was this doctor, and then...
Hank and friends decide to build a golf course within the neighborhood, which leads to a local Asian country club giving him a membership.
Because I sell propane and propane accessories.
The twist that they were only bringing him on so they could have a white guy to more easily enter them into PGA tournaments made things kind of interesting, I guess. But I still wasn't all that into this one, kind of boring, especially all the stuff with Khan. Some good jokes and a nice ending, but otherwise it's going near the bottom. I asked for my friend Sunny's opinion on this episode because I felt like it. Enjoy.
Fear and Loathing is one of those episodes that has you think twice about how bad Peggy can get at her worst, while still being somewhat redeemable.
El vomito, la diarrhea, la nausea.
Peggy says something about being too prideful or whatever, but we all know she doesn't learn a lesson from this. I'd give this episode about 6 out of 7. Baba boo.
At the end of the intro, why does Hank's shirt turn from white to blue? Mike Judge, if you're watching this, comment below.
I can't believe I lied to my boss. I should have done the honest thing and murdered the emus.
I've noticed in this season especially, the plots have begun getting pretty outlandish, at least for King of the Hill, with Luann, and later Peggy, unknowingly joining a cult as Hank and his buddies have to try and hide Buck Strickland's emus after he's ordered to kill them. And how do they come up with something like this? Still though, the crazier plot is used well. Apparently Brittany Murphy was becoming less and less available to record for Luann, so it's nice to see her get a larger role again. Her being completely unaware of what this place is and constantly frustrating the other members. Okay episode, but still one of the weaker of the season so far. Deal and Nancy decide to renew their vows, with him being upset to learn that his dad has been invited. He's gay! I like this one a lot. His dad is just the nicest guy around and wants a good relationship with his son, and I like how him trying to admit his sexuality parallels Nancy feeling bad for not telling Deal the truth between her and John Redcorn. One of the best of the season. I like that none of it even mattered in the end. Deal would have accepted him being gay instantly if he had just told him. Hank gets extremely uncomfortable after dreaming about himself and Nancy, him being unable to get the image out of his head. Peggy's ways of coping with this was hilarious, asking shit like, "Are you sure it wasn't just me wearing a Nancy mask?" Killed me. And I love that in reality his dream is just super TM. Seems more excited about the propane burgers than Nancy.
If I were bored of Peggy, I'd be having dreams in which I was bored of Peggy, not grilling naked with the neighbor's wife.
Time for one of the rare Boomhauer episodes, as he begins to understand how he makes women feel after one that he really likes ends things with him.
Please don't put on Dido. No!
Hey folks, how's it going? Today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite episodes of King of the Hill, Dang Old Love. So what happens when Bill falls in love with a woman that Boomhauer is also, eyeing up? Turns out Boomhauer gets a taste of his own medicine. He meets a girl who kind of treats him the same way that he treats other girls, and he falls for her, like really bad. And that's very unusual for Boomhauer. He tries to call her, she ghosts him. She even answers the phone. I think her coworkers are laughing at him during his pleas for her to come back. I think her name is Marlene, Marlene. Marlene. But then Bill has a turn of heart, and he's like, I'm gonna help out Boomhauer. I'm done making fun of him. Now I see how sad he is. I'm going to help him. And that leads to one of the best moments in the entire show. Boomhauer and Bill have a moment where they're sharing a beer up on the hill, and Bill just tells Boomhauer, "Listen, I've been there with that heartache. It sucks." He uses a metaphor of saying there's a train with a entire a box cart full of heartache, and it's coming right at you. And all you can do is let it hit you, and then you find your feet. And I thought that was very powerful. It's this idea of life can be tough. Heartache sucks. It sucks getting dumped. Bill's been there multiple times. But all you can do is get right back up and try again. It's a very good lesson about, it sucks to get dumped. And it's good for Boomhauer to also get perspective to realize he's been the way, being kind of cold-hearted, the way that Marlene was to him. So he got to walk a mile in the shoes of the girls he's been dumping, which he even goes back to apologize to the ice cream lady that he's banging at the start of the episode and become friends with her. It's a great Bill episode. It's a fantastic Boomhauer episode. We don't really get that many Boomhauer episodes. It's pretty rare. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 in the entire run of the entire show. Mark, I hope that you have yourself a steak made on propane for this video. If not, then what's the point? What are we doing here?
I guess every season's gonna have a two-parter, as we close out on Returning Japanese, which sees the family and Cotton head to Japan, as he begins feeling guilt for his actions during the war. He wants to apologize to one of the widows he created. It's probably the best Cotton episode we've seen, us watching how this guilt has affected him. Definitely his most sympathetic spotlight. And seeing the Hills in such an extremely different setting compared to what they're used to makes for a ton of funny gags.
Yeah, this is it. Squiggles on the address the concierge gave us match the squiggles on the sign.
Turns out Cotton had an affair with the widow, and his reason for returning was to tell her how he feels. However, things quickly get complicated after Hank meets his brother. This was a fantastic way to kick off the second half. Hank being extremely excited at the prospect of having a brother, although he denies being a Hill in any way. What a great way to end the season. I loved this one. Despite the positivity towards those last couple episodes, Season 6 is a definite step down from 5, which leads me to believe we're only going to go down further and further. Still though, worst season yet? Not a lot of bad episodes. A majority of them were just kinda alright at best. But Returning Japanese, Bobby Goes Nuts, Sug Knight, The Father, the Son, and JC, all great episodes I'd consider classics. The worst episodes are consistently the ones that feature Peggy or Cotton in a prominent role, but I'm still open to seeing what they do with them in the future. Again, I liked Cotton in that last episode. So, let's see how things progress in Season 7. Season 7 begins with Hank trying to take the edge out of Bobby's adolescence after seeing him inappropriately dancing with a girl. Obviously, he's got to learn to not be so controlling over what his son experiences as he grows up. You've seen this before. But I liked everything with Hank and Peggy interacting with the more young, carefree parents. And I enjoy the simplicity of Peggy's B-plot where she's deeply upset to learn that her friends find Hank to be one of the least sexy people on the block. Solid all around. You know, something I've noticed for a while is that Hank really is never as aggressive as he was in that first season. Which was for the better, of course. But I do wonder if that came more so as a result of them having to take the stick out of his ass to justify him entertaining some of these goofier situations, or was it just to exemplify his traits right away so audiences could quickly get what his character is about? Who knows, maybe they talk about it in the episode commentaries or something. Time to watch the whole show again. This was one of the weakest episodes we've seen as of now, as Bill is upset to learn that his newfound skill of competitive eating has been overshadowed by Dale being better than him without even trying. Jeff Garland's cameo was a nice surprise, although Kid Rock immediately entering for a gag gave me real mid-season Simpsons vibes, at least when it comes to gratuitous celebrity guest stars. For the most part, it's a pretty forgettable episode. Crazy how ever since he and Connie decided to break up, we haven't seen her nearly as much, as this one sees her delinquent cousin from LA move in, getting Bobby involved in the creation of a meth lab. Holy shit. I like how they expand more upon their breakup, us getting the impression Connie still has feelings for him but can't admit it, and Lucy Liu's character makes for one of the more memorable guest star appearances. Better than the last, but not as strong as the first. It's good though.
We build a protective razor wire top fence around our existing fence.
Dang it, Dale. That's genius.
Yes, just what I've been craving. Another Peggy episode. This time around, she's jealous that Bobby is a better chef than her. They've been consistently hinting at this idea that Bobby loves to cook. I know he's a chef in the Hulu revival, so I'm sure that was really cool for fans to see. It was clever to also have this be their Thanksgiving episode, giving Peggy some kind of looming threat being upstaged on such a big day. But the highlight of the whole thing is seeing how much Hank loves Bobby's new home ec skills. I love seeing them get along. Meanwhile, Peggy is just horrible, actively discouraging Bobby at points.
Bobby and I were up all night talking. Really talking.
Like, obviously you get why she's so upset, and it's a cartoon, so, you know, it's an exaggerated portrayal of a housewife feeling threatened by their kid. You know, that's a funny idea, and it is a very funny episode. But fuck, does it just make you so sick of Peggy fucking Hill? These episodes are becoming way too frequent. Hope Peggy gets to do something else soon. Remember The Good Family? Off topic, but it was another Mike Judge cartoon that didn't take off nearly as much as King of the Hill did. It was basically the opposite premise entirely. Probably didn't take off because the main characters look like this. Anyway, here's a weird one. Bobby and Hank entering their dog partners into a dog dancing competition, while Bill adopts a Rottweiler to do the same.
Oh, he's dreaming.
I love that Hank just cannot get enough of this fucking dog. I know they do the time skip, so I'm preparing to be devastated when she passes. I was expecting not to enjoy this one given the stupid fucking premise, but it's one of the funniest of the season. I really liked it.
It's like when I try to get through to you, I mention propane.
Hank is disappointed to learn that Bobby left the school football team to spend his time growing roses, but he pretty quickly makes an effort to encourage this by entering him in a rose growing contest. Didn't even know they had those. I like how out of his element Hank is during all this before completely taking over. The guy at the store chewing Hank out for getting his son involved in this, not realizing the physical and mental torment that comes with rose growing had me dying. Great episode, one of Hank and Bobby's best. Here's a premise I'm shocked they haven't tackled yet. Hank has to go to anger management after cutting Deal's finger off. Hank really isn't as angry of a character anymore, so it probably would have made sense happening earlier, although the guy completely ruined his kitchen and got him kicked out of his house, so I think he's more than justified in his fucking anger here. The ending makes it all work. Everyone treats Hank like he's this unreasonably angry guy that cut his finger off on purpose, so I'm happy he comes to the conclusion that anger can be healthy in moderation. Another good one, even if it is one of Deal's most unlikable appearances. Peggy becomes owner of a local bookstore, which she struggles to make successful, and so naturally, there's only one solution: let Deal sell guns inside. It's a funny idea, but not much a note is done with the concept. God, she just sucks so hard. She does all this to join a book club, but completely ruins their chances of being invited back due to her obnoxious personality. Hank was getting along well with him. Hank would have such a better life if he wasn't with Peggy.
I'm gonna go with, gun.
I was surprised to hear Allison Janney guest stars, the previous store owner. She plays the mom in Juno. And Quagmire's mom. I can't be alone in thinking this, but there's just something about watching King of the Hill that makes me want to drink a beer and eat a burger. It's a good vibe. Either way, Michael Keaton guest stars as yet another guy that Luann has fallen for. This time it's a rich pork processing guy who gives her a job, although we eventually learn that he creepily wants to turn her into his company mascot.
To put it bluntly, they're more interested in something else.
Oh, you mean sex?
No.
Dude, I know they're just jokes and sometimes they can be funny, but fuck man, I hate Peggy. I really think they should have considered how all these awful Peggy moments would paint a horrible picture of her when done so frequently. Luann only gets involved in this whole ordeal because Peggy quit her job for her and took her to meet this crazy guy. I would have enjoyed this one more if it weren't for Peggy taking up so much screen time. Even worse, she winds up being right about the guy being crazy. And so we have to sit through scene after scene of no one else believing her. But I wouldn't believe her either, she's usually wrong. Definitely one of the most bizarre episodes of the entire show, especially when he dons his pig attire and fucking dies. Good episode, though. Holy fuck, every time it randomly jumps to digital coloring, it's like a jump scare. Deal is hired to take care of the pest problem at the Megalomart. However, it turns out that the pest is Chuck Mangione. This is one of the rare times his insane theories actually turn out to be right, which naturally makes it one of the more outlandish episodes. I like this is one of the rare times where Deal chooses not to gloat about being right. Him deciding to keep Chuck's secret. You know, it's okay. It's fine. Glad to see Luann's been getting more attention lately, as she becomes a boxer to try and prove herself. Apparently, despite her busy schedule, becoming a big Hollywood star and all, Brittany Murphy still loved the character and actively got involved in figuring out how they could move Luann forward.
And when I get done whipping up on her, I'm gonna come looking for you.
What'd I do?
Cool seeing her in a setting completely out of her comfort zone, thinking that she's skilled at the sport before learning every fight has been rigged in her favor, the man only caring about seeing her jump around. I liked the subtle continuity of the boxing gloves Hank gave Luann being the same ones he used against Bobby before getting kicked in the dick. But with a ton of great jokes and a wonderful ending, this stands out as being one of Luann's best. Deal goes on a vision quest meant for Joseph and now believes that he's a Native American, which obviously upsets John Redcorn. I really enjoy everything between Bobby and Joseph here. Him getting in with a bad crowd, which only makes the vision quest seem more important for Hank to try and help with, not wanting it to rub off on his son too. And it was clever how it all comes back to the pandas that Bobby wanted to see. Pretty nonsensical episode, but it's good. The ending where John Redcorn helps him see the light, encouraging him not to get in with a bad crowd and make his own path, was sweet, going around the middle. Hank and Peggy try to add some excitement into their marriage by adopting a cool biker lifestyle.
I'm rich. And you, stop playing the blame game. Ha-ha!
Not the best out there, but by God, it is nice to see them actually get along, even if it is brief. Hank refuses to let her be the one who rides out of embarrassment of sitting in the back. I just wish they got to this point quicker. There's only a couple minutes left to resolve things, and even then he only lets her ride in the end because he had no other choice. Still though, got a nice ending. It's the mandatory competing for a role in the school board episode every sitcom seems to do. Surprised it took 7 seasons, honestly. I'm at least glad it's not between Hank and Peggy, that would have been so lame. Instead, it's between her, Nancy, and Min. They have been subtly upping the friendly rivalry between those three as of late, so I think it's a natural progression for him. This shot was executed very well, even if it is bizarre they switched to digital animation for it. Boring episode, Peggy sucks. Bobby gets sent to military academy, where Cotton will not rest until his spirit is completely broken. It's a fun subversion to have none of their old school punishments be upholded. If anything, Bobby is treated better here than at home, at least until Cotton comes back into the picture. It's solid. Not much else to say, one of the rare times where Cotton being such an unlikable bastard works for me. None of his torture methods working on Bobby.
The gas will never, ever run out. He won me in a card game. Get out of here while you still can. Run, run!
Season 7 has gotta be the most okay season of the show yet. I've noticed these episodes being a lot smaller and more character-focused compared to what we saw in the last few. I'd be interested in learning about the behind-the-scenes of the series around this time. It seems like all the main plot was done traditionally, Bobby getting a job at Strickland and Hank being jealous of his Greater Seals numbers. While the start and end of the B-plot, where Deal sends Bill into the sky and off to Mexico, was handled digitally. Yes, that is the story. Makes you feel like you're watching 2 different episodes at first. Doesn't help these stories could not be further apart in terms of tone, going around the middle. The Hank and Bobby stuff is great, though. Here's a weird one, as Hank's boss Buck Strickland starts hanging out with Luann.
I let you hide behind me in dodgeball. I'm through with you.
Was that Jimmy Neutron? Am I going crazy? The whole Bible tutor thing makes it a lot more understandable why Luann would be interested in this, and it was a smart move to focus more so on Hank not believing he's doing this with good intentions. They're too quick in giving the audience that answer. There is literally no time spent before it's revealed that, yes, he is just doing this for sex, obviously. I guess I can respect that, like why bother you making you wonder if it's genuine when you already know it isn't, but at that point it just makes the whole thing feel pointless. It still winds up getting distracted by a single gag halfway through and never finds itself until the very end, which, you know, is pretty good. Overall though, meh. Oh, and where would we be without another Peggy episode? This time she takes over the school's organic garden and fails to admit she's putting pesticides in it.
Dad, give me a wheelbarrow ride!
Okay, quick, get in.
One of her better episodes, to be fair. Like yeah, she's being selfish, but it's at least one of the rare instances where she went in with good intentions. I've been shitting on her a lot lately, and I want to make it clear that I don't actually hate Peggy Hill. I'm not writing off an episode just because it stars her. So it's good to point out when there's a Peggy episode I actually think is alright. I like that Hank takes an interest in helping them. Again, it's nice seeing them on the same page. And while it does feature one of the weaker B-plots, feels like they were just trying to find anything for Hank's friends to do. I did think it was pretty okay all in all.
Thing either, but
Yep! Get lost, Bill!
That was such a visceral shot, you could hear the mic peaking. Here's an interesting plot, with Hank finding a tattoo in the back of his shaven head and having to uncover the memories of the drunken night he got it. Cool seeing a bit of his past with Bill. I love everything it does with their relationship, kicks off the whole thing. Solid reminder of why these guys are even friends with such a bum in the first place. I liked it a lot. You know, if Hank had a goatee, he kinda looked like Walter White. After biting a black guy, everyone in the town begins to see Hank and, well, his dog, as racists. The dog bit him, not Hank, by the way.
right now I need you to use your love of, Puffy and Diddy.
It is a little comical how quick the guy is to claim the dog growling is because of his race, but it leads to a ton of funny moments. Him sitting his dog in front of fucking rap music videos. Again, though, you just feel bad for Hank, everyone claiming he's the racist and at fault for his dog's actions. Really reminded me of an early season in terms of tone and pacing. Going at the top. Nancy, of all people, becomes jealous of a female exterminator Dale has been working with. Creates a really unique situation we haven't seen yet, her having to fight for his attention out of fear of the same thing she did to him happening to her. And Hank has a solid low-stakes B-story as well, him getting drunk after agreeing to be Luann's designated driver, which leads to him getting trapped in an incredibly uncomfortable situation. Going near the top.
In Italy. Have you ever been? You would love it.
Oh my God!
That is a great drawing. So Bill starts going out with Khan's mum, alright? And so now Khan has to try and sabotage things to break him up. It's nice seeing him put in such a painful position, and I like how genuine their relationship is. They get along well, it's really charming. Although I do wonder if they're gonna stay together in future episodes. Either way, it's alright, nothing much else to say. Finally, Season 7 closes with a David Cross guest appearance, playing a bum who gets Bobby into witchcraft. I find it to be a pretty boring finale. Not bad by any means, but it'll probably wind up being towards the middle of my list. I find Bobby didn't have enough good times with them to almost be willing to go through with drinking dog's blood. But it is funny that even he realizes how lame they are by the end.
Does this look dumb? Huzzah!
Don't make me come over there!
According to what I saw on Wikipedia, Mike Judge didn't enjoy Season 4 or 5 of King of the Hill as much as the earlier ones, and wanted to use this as a way to get the characters back on track. More grounded plots, more character-focused. And I'd say they accomplished that goal. And hey, was a little better than Season 6, I'd say. There's a couple really good ones in here and a couple kind of bad ones, but I find a majority of them to just be kind of average. I noticed they all revolved around the same 4 or 5 characters. Connie has really disappeared from this show, hasn't she? It definitely feels like the show is past its prime at this point, but again, that's not to say it's bad at all. I'm more so curious how they're going to keep this up for over 100 more episodes, while not feeling the need to jump the shark at any point. It's not like we're doing episodes where it's revealed that Boomhauer has a fucking brother voiced by Brad Pitt, you know?
Man, hey, come on. Hey, ow, ow, ow! Dadgum jaw, man. Talking TMJ, man.
Season 8 starts with Boomhauer's brother, voiced by Brad Pitt. Getting married to a woman he's always been in love with, which sparks conflict that was previously thought buried. It's hilarious hearing Brad Pitt do his own interpretation of Boomhauer's voice. You can just barely make out what they're saying to each other. You can tell he was a fan of the show. And while the story is predictable, the humor more than makes up for it. So many super funny moments in here, it's a pretty good opener. The show is also pretty much entirely switched to digital animation now, and while it doesn't look bad, I like the way it's been inked a lot, but the colors just can't compete. It's so much brighter and the characters stick out from the backgrounds way more. Still though, made the transition better than a lot of other shows. I totally thought this was going to be an episode about those creepy reborn dolls. Bobby gets in with a Christian youth group of cool rock and roll skater bros, who Hank thinks are just treating Christianity as a fad.
It's so uncool.
You know what's not cool, Bobby? Hell.
It's funny seeing Hank put in a situation where he desperately wants to be angry at Bobby and his group but can't really find a valid reason to be. At least not until he finds out he's gonna get a tattoo to cement his faith in Christ. Do these kinds of people still exist? Where are they? Oklahoma? Either way, I also like the guys' B-plot where they all try each other's last meal. Good episode. Hank starts getting harassed by their new neighbor who used to play for the Dallas Cowboys. I thought it was going to be one of those lame episodes where nobody believes Hank when, why would he lie about this? But it works really well. Instead, it's about Hank's karma, he didn't stand up when his friends were being bullied by him.
We don't fight on this block.
Ugh. I like that despite him being such a hypocrite, you're never against Hank at any point. The neighbor is just such a dick that your hatred is always squarely on him. Definitely one of the most unlikable characters in the show, but in a good way. It's satisfying when they all finally band together and kick him out of the block. Hank wants to start getting Bobby testosterone pills so he'll stop feeling PE, which he doesn't want to admit is because he's afraid to shower in the changing room. However, they quickly find out that Hank is the one low in testosterone, and so Peggy secretly starts giving it to him. Reminds me of an early episode, like the one where he can't take a shit, as his mood immediately lifts before he starts acting like an angsty teenager. It's actually quite charming. Again, seeing Hank happy for once. Best of the season so far. Peggy meets an actor from a show The Hills like who wants her to come to Mexico with him to teach English to his kids. She thinks that he's flirting with her when in reality she's just reading into things too much. Like, yeah, obviously. Him calling her old at the end was funny, and Luann trying to assume her role at home was a pretty good side story, but I didn't really care for it, even if it has a sweet ending.
Peggy, the boy ain't right, but he's not sick.
Why do people who do Hank Hill impressions only say this line? He barely says it. Hank is at threat of being scammed by a guy their insurance company brings in after finding out their house is full of mold.
Quick, what's your middle name, huh? When's my birthday? Here, follow my finger.
Your birthday is... I don't know.
Hank, the mold's got him.
Help me, Dad!
I find it to be one of the least interesting episodes of the entire show. It wastes way too long in the problem getting progressively worse and worse until they're eventually kicked out of the house. I like how it ends, but otherwise it's a pretty boring one. Meh. Hank rents out an 18-wheeler to deliver some furniture to his mom in Arizona, taking Bobby on a cross-country road trip with his friends as stowaways. Helps give this Christmas special a larger scope than previous, him getting fed up of his friends ruining everything and getting them stuck on a snowy mountain. And Peggy and Luann's subplot where they try to write a hit Christmas song made for a fun way to break up the men. The way they animated it like Frosty the Snowman was a nice surprise. Bobby overhears that his dad got a bonus at work and thinks they're rich, so he, Joseph, and Connie steal his credit card and hit them all.
I could pull out a really big wad of cash. Bam! Dad, give me a big wad of cash.
What are you trying to do, Bobby? Get us mugged?
It's a pretty relatable situation at the start. I remember as a kid how much I'd ask my dad how much he made, so I understand Bobby's intrigue in the subject while Hank is uncomfortable by the whole thing, believing that sort of information should be private. It's surprisingly rare for this show to have episodes about money now that I think about it. Family Guy and The Simpsons have countless episodes where the family either don't have enough money for something or they become rich. The Simpsons have had at least a dozen episodes where they almost win $1 million. But King of the Hill doesn't really focus on that kind of stuff nearly as much. I appreciate it, honestly. Stress about my own finances enough, I don't also need to be stressing about a cartoon characters. Everyone in the block suddenly thinking Hank is a millionaire and wanting to take advantage of him. And again, I find it super relatable. My dad actually did the exact same thing that Hank does towards the latter half, where he just laid it all out for him. That's the day I learned that taxes were a thing. It's all been downhill from there. Peggy feels insulted after her propane tank art installation is used as an example of an average hillbilly's perception of the world. Peggy has never previously shown to give a shit about being an artist, so not sure why I'm meant to give a shit. It's not as if her dreams are being crushed. I didn't really care for this one. B-plot where Deal gets a suit of armor and realizes he can insult anyone without consequences is one of their stupidest yet. But it is a little funny. Ben Stiller guest stars as a new employee at Strickland Propane, who Hank believes is breaking sexual harassment laws with his jokes. Similar to the Chris Rock one, Hank feels insulted by him. This time he contemplates suing the guy for sexual harassment. I like that it's made clear eventually that nobody else at work is a fan of this guy. They were all just joining in to avoid being singled out. And the ending where he washes his fucking mouth out with soap was not expected.
It doesn't just cover women, but also men and transgender individuals.
Well, that aged poorly. Bill's gotta pretend to be gay in order to attract customers at his local hair salon job with Luann. Got a ton of hilarious moments, one of their funniest episodes in a while. Bill completely embracing this persona, although he could have easily solved all his problems by saying he's bisexual. Although I guess that's expecting him to know what being bisexual is. I'm curious if the ending where Luann and him start working at the barbershop Hank goes to will come back in the future. Don't have a lot to say other than that, but it's solid. We'll probably wind up around the middle of the list. I had literally nothing to say about this one. It felt so by the numbers, so please enjoy.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's RT. I hope you're enjoying the video. And thanks to Mark, I get to talk about one of the funniest episodes of the season to me, Fish and Wildlife. So Peggy and Hank want to go out to dinner, and they decide to leave Bobby home alone since he's getting to that age where he should be able to take care of himself without a babysitter. But that doesn't happen. Bobby watches a scary movie, freaks out, and calls him to come back. And Hank thinks that all Bobby needs is a little boost in confidence so he's able to take care of himself. So once again, he throws him headfirst into something he doesn't want to do and takes him camping with the rest of the boys. Once they all get to the park and start setting up, you know, things are already not going too well for Bobby. The camping part alone is already tough for him, but they put in this rule where you have to catch what you eat, and Bobby doesn't know how to catch anything better than Bill or Boomhauer. So he's just sitting there sad until he gets approached by some dude who kind of looks like me with a diabolical soul patch, and Hank tries to get the guy out of here until he realizes he's not alone. Over the hills and out of the shadows, a huge army of hippies appear, and they basically take over their campsite. So an older hippie goes to explain to Hank, who's full on butt booty naked, but it turns out the boys decided the worst time to go camping. They are out here during the Gathering, an event where hundreds of hippies meet up to get high and freaky in the forest. So Dale and Boomhauer decide to head out, but Bill and Bobby start to talk a little bit more and get a little bit more cool with the rest of the hippies. Bobby was starving and worried about his confidence until he met two hippies named Fudgy and Topaz, who give him some food and tell him that confidence and self-reliance, that stuff doesn't matter, man, chill. They're all about sharing, so they shared some of their food with him. But there is a catch. Since they shared their food with Bobby, they expect him to share his stuff too. And the hippies take full advantage of this, taking Hank's fishing rods, his truck. They even start smashing in his sleeping bag. So Hank's gotta step in and do something right, because Bobby can't stand up to the hippies, and Bill is off in La La Land covered in mud, calling himself Energy Turtle. And Hank at first, he doesn't want to deal with it. He's ready to give up and just let the hippies have the site and go. Until him and Bobby realize that they can use the hippie mindset against them. There's one 3-letter word that's every hippie's weakness. Starts with a J, ends with a B, put the fries in the bag and go flip those patties. Hank and Bobby burst in the middle of their talking circle and steals the talking feather, allowing him to tell everyone that the park is shutting down and that they can't sit around here anymore. But if they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and do some work and put in some effort, they can go back to chilling. He's ready to teach them all how to finally take care of themselves, basically jump scaring them with a job application. And it works! They all head out immediately. So much for the good vibes. Once they all leave, the boys eventually find Hank's truck stuck in the mud with a bunch of stickers on it. P for enjoyment, not for employment. But before leaving, Bobby has an idea. Now that everything's quieted down, him and Hank have a nice little afternoon fishing while the sun goes down. I find this one so fun just because the hippies are so far removed from reality that everything they say sounds silly as hell. And also, this entire time, Peggy's been on a side quest. You see, while the boys were out camping, Peggy got to work on her list of stuff she wanted to do, and she crushed it. She got everything done quick as hell. So she starts feeling herself, you know, she's on a roll. So she's the opposite of Bobby. She becomes the most confident person in the town, going around doing stuff she shouldn't be, which ends with her getting arrested. And that's it. That's a conclusion. That's her whole plot. Roll credits.
Peggy becomes the school's cheerleading coach to help them with their moves, and quickly begins doing anything she can to get the crowd excited. That means violence.
Well, you want to come to a sleepover? We're going to sit around and make fun of everybody.
She gets caught up in making the murder routine more and more extreme, before crossing the line by making racist jokes about the Irish. It's a pretty shit one overall, felt especially slow, and it's not funny enough to make up for it. But I will say, I think I'd sooner rewatch this episode than the last, even though I do think it's better. Sometimes an episode sucks so hard that it makes it more interesting than an average one, you know? Here's a pretty silly plot, as Dale goes into hospital to undergo a kidney transplant and asks Hank if he can assume all his usual roles for 3 days.
All of our blood was screened, tested, and cataloged into the computer.
Oh God, not the master computer!
It looked like a Dell.
I find it to be pretty weak. It's cool getting to see a rundown of Dale's day by day, and I'm glad that aspect doesn't overstay its welcome, it quickly being revealed that Dale plans on having someone sneak into the hospital to sell his kidney instead of giving it to a 10-year-old boy. You know, we're almost 9 seasons in, and I think it's so incredibly impressive that I can count on one hand the amount of episodes that I would consider flat-out bad. Not that this is one of them, you know? Much like a lot of Season 8 so far, it's just kinda decent. Damn, here's another one I'm not too keen on. As the town find themselves stuck inside the school gym during a flood. That's a great idea, everyone being confined to one room. but I find how they have the characters react range from annoying to awkward. Bill becomes shelter leader, which makes Hank jealous, but you're on Hank's side completely. Bill starts blaming Hank for the flood and all their other problems, and encourages them to throw him in a cage. This is probably one of Bill's worst appearances, not telling anyone that the rain had already stopped ages ago. Then on the other side, we have Peggy's fear causing her to regress and act like she's a baby. It's gross. Deal starts a new business called Deal Tech, obviously. It's actually a clever idea, puts his security camera knowledge to good use. Too bad it's more so focused on Cotton, who becomes an auxiliary policeman and threatens Deal's new business. Some entertaining gags, but I find it to be pretty underwhelming, as Deal tries to make everyone hate him before eventually having to team up. Feels like they have no idea what to do with Cotton. We've learned so much about the past that he can no longer come off as a threat. He's such a pathetic character. You almost feel bad for him in this case, but not quite. As a kid, I always worried that a board in my room would fall on me and make me like Flat Stanley. This episode has Peggy take a Flat Stanley around. I probably should have talked about that first. Hank is upset to learn that the school's new textbooks removed most history about the Alamo. Feels like a good time to mention I didn't grow up in America, so I have no idea what the Alamo is. That's something I will say. As a non-American, while certain references have probably gone over my head, I don't think any of it makes the show non-accessible to a foreigner. Very similar to American Dad in that regard, but with, like, the complete opposite tone. Saying that, also not a fan of this episode. Hank decides to create a reenactment of the Alamo, and it becomes more so about the guy he teamed up with to make it. I could see some Texas history nuts enjoying this episode, but that is not me.
Bobby, this is what it would look like if Boomhauer and me had a baby.
Luann joins Hank in protesting a grilling contest after learning they don't allow anyone to use propane and goes way overboard. We haven't seen an episode like this between these two in a long time. Season 8, while evidently not being my favorite so far, does feature a lot of classic ideas that would have felt right at home in Season 2 or 3. No interest in Peggy's B-plot where she and her friends try to get a tour of a murder house, but it's still one of the better episodes of the season.
I feel a lot of YouTubers can relate to the episode Stressed for Success. Bobby enters a school trivia competition with his specialty being knowledge of movies and TV stars, something he can't get enough of, though his trivia team relies on him so much that he has to be up to date with every little bit of Hollywood gossip. With how much info is out there, it just burns him out from enjoying this stuff. It's relatable. I used to edit 2 videos and 2 podcasts per month for 4 years straight till I had heart palpitations, I think. A new show dropped and I had to watch the whole season. Like, I had to keep up with everything. The King of the Hill episode doesn't exactly have a solution. It just sort of boils down to chill out. The world does not rely on you. It's entertainment. Just enjoy this stuff. Now, I kind of just do videos when I feel like it.
Johnny Depp guest stars as an annoying yoga instructor that helps Hank with his back problems, although his insurance company begins claiming he's taken advantage of his workers' comp.
How's your back, honey?
Great, Joe Jack. How's your gambling problem?
It's hilarious how rude the insurance people are, constantly trying to catch Hank out in his very real injury, and Peggy has a pretty solid B story as well. She's actually good at bagging stuff, and so her ego is actually justified. One of the best. The Khans feel so disheartened by Connie getting rejected from summer school due to them already filling their Asian quota that they decide to become rednecks after realizing good work ethic gets you nowhere in life. I find it fairly relatable. Like, of course this isn't going anywhere, they stop paying their bills and almost lose their house, so they revert back. Yeah, okay, sure. It's weird seeing these characters be treated as so impressionable. I didn't think they justified this well enough to care about where it goes next. And Season 8 ends with Bobby taking up peer counseling as an excuse to talk to girls, which disappoints Hank, who just bought a wrecked car from Defect, assuming he instead chose to take up auto shop. It's funny how his plan immediately backfires, learning he's not allowed to date anyone in the class, and after advising a girl to break up with her boyfriend, she's not crazily after him. It's okay, I like the ending a lot. This is the worst season ever, and it's just okay. The worst it has to offer really isn't that bad, but at the same time, I don't think much of Season 8 is going to find itself in my top 50. It's almost like you can see the show wanting to do more beyond its grounded premise. Like the writers are constantly trying to ride the line of what's going too far. Still though, we haven't gotten flat out bad yet, so let's see what Season 9's got to offer. Okay, the beer vibe worked on me. I'm drunk for this bit, okay? Season 9 opens with us finally getting a proper introduction to Peggy's mom. I'm shocked it has taken them this long to get to something like this.
No, it was my mother.
Your mother? Wow, what's it been, 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
20 years? But I thought they spoke to Peggy's mom in the Thanksgiving airport episode. Boy, a shirt, you know the rest. She's got a redesign and everything, not that I really care. I don't have much attachment to the lady who birthed Peggy Hill. Her mom is a mean cattle rancher, constantly expressing disappointment in everything she does. Although we quickly move on from that once Peggy is given the news that the farm has been bought by Henry Winkler, and now Hank has to try and get him to go back in his decision. I like Henry Winkler, so I find his character pretty entertaining, but I really didn't find this episode anything amazing. Sucks considering they treat it like a big moment, finally meeting your family, you know, ignore those other times. Either of these plots could have filled up 22 minutes on their own, but it's fine. A previous resident of the Hills house returns for Christmas, with the announcement that she wishes to die in their home. That is an amazingly absurd idea.
I'll probably die in my house, wedged behind the bathroom door, inaccessible to the paramedics. Well, what can you do?
It reminds me of an early episode where it's all about the moral dilemma that comes with this. You know, they're denying her of her last wish, but also, you don't want some random lady dying in your house. Weird. I personally find it funny, but it's so dark in concept that I could see someone hating it. It's a pretty serious plot for a fucking Christmas episode. You want to know what's even crazier, though? Hank Hill kind of looks like an older Nick A30, right? Cotton buys a timeshare in Mexico, not realizing an American can't own land there, and you're expected to give a shit about this despite him being a massive asshole over it. I find this to be one of the most utterly boring episodes so far. I'll probably only remember it for the unique setting. I like Hank's shirt. Another episode where Peggy just sucks, as she tries to grow her own garden in the front yard.
What's your secret to keeping the grass so green?
Oh, it's simple, really. We water it.
They're too upfront about this being out of pure jealousy, mad that Hank is getting compliments for something she has no involvement in. Maybe it would be slightly more tolerable if she didn't already start at 11. Her acting like such an asshole wasn't built up to through her struggles. She tries and fails on day one, immediately having a sour attitude about the whole thing before settling on buying a lawn gnome, and that's it. I'm at least glad it diverts focus onto Bobby Brick and her weird gnome, and along with Hank trying to lie to her about what happened to it. But I just don't care, though. Her passion for this garden gnome was not genuine at all. She treated it like a status symbol. Sucks. Steele becomes extremely patriotic after realizing that JFK's assassination was not a government conspiracy, which, I don't know, feels like they took one of their usual B-plots and tried to stretch it out enough to warrant it taking up a majority of the thing.
If the government is so perfect, why did they send me a license that says I'm a woman, huh?
Because you're a woman.
I honestly preferred Hank's story where he gets his driver's license, which incorrectly labels him as a female, and now he needs to spend the entire episode trying to go through all the bullshit paperwork to try and get such a simple fix. Still though, it's decent, both stories feed into each other in clever ways, but it's just kind of forgettable.
Dad!
Cat?
The Hills vet, Jason Bateman, hits Hank with massive bill after bill over a cat that isn't even his. Seeing him struggle with this mean-ass cat for the first half was great, probably the highlight. Cats are fucking mean. But it gets old fast. They put up with so much shit, constantly having to spend their vacation money on the thing. It is a miserable episode. I was waiting for it to end during that latter half. Wow, I think this is probably the first episode about one of Hank's longtime co-workers, as Enrique starts getting clingy with him due to his marital crisis at home. Danny Trejo gives a solid performance. I can't imagine he's always voiced this guy, has he? But it's mostly just awkward, Hank feeling uncomfortable about telling the guy to leave them alone, and knowing the only way to get rid of them is to get involved in his love life.
You're the only one in the world I can turn to.
Okay then, I'll see it work.
Some good jokes, but I was mostly annoyed by this one. Boy, Season 9, hasn't been horrible so far, but it definitely feels the most different. It's hard to describe, but earlier in the video I talked about King of the Hill having this vibe, this Sunday morning chilling with a beer and a barbecue kind of vibe. Now the vibe feels more like boring weekday evening with nothing else to watch. This was the wrong season to get drunk during. Here's a fun idea for a change. As Hank realizes he didn't mail in his insurance payment and now needs to make sure he doesn't get in any accident until it reactivates in 36 hours.
I demand to speak to your supervisor.
Please hold.
Bobby, grab my checkbook. I'm gonna kick this guy's ass over the phone.
They pack a lot in here. It helps make Hank's ultra-controlling mindset not get annoying, as Peggy and Luann are stranded until it reactivates. Boomhauer and Bill are distracted seeing what they can get away with deep frying, and Deal's B-therapy hustle integrated itself with the main plot well. Very good episode with a great ending. Hank wants the school's football yard caretaker to keep his job. Only issue is he's completely senile. And so Hank starts secretly upkeeping the field for him. Meanwhile, Luann falls for a redneck who I recognized from the one with the Khans almost losing their home. It's a cool bit of continuity. Couldn't give less of a shit about another Luann love story, especially with such a bum. And Hank's plot is fairly predictable, it's okay. I just find the coach annoying, so I couldn't care less if he got fired.
A pancake sale, where we get our wives to serve pancakes topless. Not yours, Hank.
1, 2, 3, 4, hit!
Peggy and Luann become roller derby girls after falling into debt. Well, Luann's in debt, Peggy just wants to join too, and then gets herself in debt doing so. I didn't think Luann's boyfriend Lucky from the previous episode would carry over, but I will say, he was a lot more tolerable here. I enjoyed his B-plot with Bobby. Decent episode. John Redcorn decides to open a casino on his land so he can have a venue for his band to play. Guess he's in a band. I thought it was pretty lame. Not typically a fan of these kind of plots where a random set of characters create a rock band, and this one was no different. Meh, ends pretty well. Peggy wants to find the Smoking Bandit, a guy who's been smoking in restaurants, although we already know it's Deal who thinks doing it is impressing Joseph. It's not very strong in my opinion. They treat it like some alter ego he dons, and I don't understand why Joseph would care so much about this random guy. They treat it like he's Spider-Man. I can definitely see what some folks mean when they say the later seasons get too outlandish. This is a clear case of that and how it just doesn't fit this show that well. Bobby starts getting harassed at school by a kid who keeps jump scaring him, as Nancy starts getting sidelined at work by their new meteorologist, her trying to find a way to make him quit. This leads to her stealing a van to report in a wildfire, which obviously puts them in danger and makes for an exciting third act, but it's basically a different take on that one where Luann becomes the new weather girl. I think I'd rather watch that one. Hank forces Bobby to join the school's track team, quickly learning that he's only there to make the rest of the team try harder. One of the better episodes of the season. I like Hank comparing this to a genie's wish that went wrong. Good ending, too, go near the top. Our shortest season yet ends with Bill deciding to join a men's choir, who require, wink wink, the utmost loyalty and demand he put his job on the line for the sake of the group. It's another pretty depressing one. Bill has such a sad life. But I did enjoy Bobby and Peggy's simple B-plot where they get addicted to playing Pong. Okay, I'm sorry, Season 8. This is the worst season yet. Please say it doesn't get worse. The plots are either too outlandish or too fucking boring. I will still say, though, Smoking in the Bandit is at the bottom of my list, and that is not a bad episode, I'm still impressed, kind of. Consider The Simpsons or Family Guy or SpongeBob, I feel like this point, the show was already pretty fucking trash. Don't even have to talk about Fairly Odd Parents, that show was in the gutter by now. So all I can hope is that Season 10 offers a similar level of quality, but maybe we go for a little higher though, please. Season 10 opens with a really interesting idea as Hank finds out that Dale and Boomhauer have been going fishing without him and Bill. And while initially rationalizing it as them not wanting Bill to ruin their trips, he quickly begins to worry that they're instead sick of him. It's a great idea for an episode, him having to try and be more willing to go with the flow, something he struggles with because they're stupid. To make the story work, they kinda had to up the stupidity of Hank's friends, as well as make them uncharacteristically open about their annoyance towards as many rules. But it works. The second he lets his guard down, they immediately find themselves in trouble, admitting Hank is completely right about them. Honestly, this was a lot better than most of Season 9. Peggy starts a newspaper column where she writes about household hints. She doesn't know any. I thought it was pretty boring. She uses Min to get her fix, but eventually has to rely on herself, almost poisoning the town. While Bobby has a fairly mediocre B-plot where Dale takes over his paper route and is bad at it. Couldn't have seen that coming.
You told people to mix ammonia and bleach?
Only if they want bathroom fixtures that shine like the sun.
Peggy, that's the recipe for mustard gas.
Bill needs Hank's help after opening up his house as a rehab center. I find it gets there in a pretty natural way, at least more than you'd expect after hearing that synopsis, after he finally feels useful while taking care of Hank's family as they're sick. But I just find it annoying, as Bill and Hank struggle to take care of so many people with only more and more coming. Not a fan. The show doesn't feel much different in tone, but I think that just makes the crazier plot stand out more.
Don't let go, don't let go, don't let go!
He let go!
So the mayor wants to open the Museum of Prostitution in Arlen, as well as host the Adult Video Awards, which leads to Peggy and Hank deciding to protest. I'm surprised that Peggy is keeping her job working for the Bystander. She hasn't brought up winning Substitute Teacher of the Year for a while, so that's nice.
Dad, what did the men do all day when the women were out prostituting?
Honestly, this is a rare time where I agree with Peggy, as Hank is mad that she is exposing the town's history of being founded by harlots. Although it is funny that her morals and progressivism go out the window at the prospect of the town embracing its dirtiness. A solid episode. So Hank decides he's gonna send Bobby off to Clown College, in the hopes that he'll finally have an outlet for all his tomfoolery. Although the teacher treats comedy more like an equation to be solved, which takes all the fun out of it, and is actually quite uncomfortable to watch. It's okay, but I surprisingly preferred this simple, charming B-plot where the gang find a dodgeball and start playing kickball together. Khan feels embarrassed after being told he acts too white and starts making an effort to return to his Laotian roots. Probably the funniest episode of the season so far. It's like a better version of the one where he becomes a redneck.
When you're working construction, your head is still your most valuable tool, so you've got to protect it.
Him wanting to join the same country club from that previous episode makes you understand his plight a lot, him feeling like this is finally his chance to get in. Not as into the third act, where he joins their army, but still I liked it, going around the middle. Hank invites a softball team to come compete against their town to raise money for the baseball program.
Easy out. She's distracted by her recent divorce.
A rare episode where I actually didn't like Hank very much. They invite a joke team in who fuck around and do sketches. It's for fun and charity, but Hank demands the team still try and beat him, taking it all way too seriously for little to no reason, aside from pride, I guess. It's funny, I suppose, that this causes the joke team to lock in and destroy them, refusing to give them the money. But other than that, I don't really have much to say. It's a pretty miserable episode that could have been easily avoided. I don't know if I meant to find this Ace guy the villain or not. I think he's in the right. Johnny Knoxville guest stars as a guy Bobby shadows. His job is picking up shit. It's nowhere near as bad as it seems, however, with Hank being afraid Bobby will want to do it for a living in the future.
Do you think I could get a 9th grader if she was ugly?
Also got a rare Joseph and Hank pairing as he's shadowing him at Strickland, although not much comes of it. Hank is halfway tied between this stuff as well as being worried for Bobby, so I don't even really know why it needed a B-plot in the first place. It's okay, even if the ending does kinda suck, with Bobby being lied to in order to scare him from touching the job. Going near the top of the list though. This is another episode that I have literally no comment on. It is fine. Hank's gotta work for Khan after Buck Strickland buys a stick in his new car wash. He's bossy and annoying. Wow, couldn't have saw that coming. I liked his drawing. Hank gets all the propane business in Ireland to agree to a fixed pricing scheme, him being unaware they've all agreed to charge as much as possible, which obviously hurts the consumer and gets the government to investigate what Hank has caused. I just don't care about Buck and feel bad for Hank. Him having to go undercover and catch his boss out. Honestly, you wonder why he respects the guy after all these episodes. He blames himself for it all. Not into this one either. Season 10 started alright, but easily it is the worst so far, even if the show still isn't at the point of being straight up bad yet. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen them tackle a topic like mega churches before, as the Hills joined one for a completely petty reason. It's another episode where I kinda, hate Hank. His reason for leaving is so stupid, feeling as if he's owed certain seats in the church, only leaving when the pastor tells him to stop acting like a child. And instead of it being a story where they join this new church and realize it sucks or it's cult-like or, scam, like you'd expect, he instead realizes the megachurch is so awesome, if a little demanding, and threatens to poach people to go to it unless he gets what he wants. I don't think he's ever been this unbearable. I can appreciate them not taking the easy way out in regards to its resolution, but in turn, it just makes me not give a shit about our protagonist. Good idea, poor execution. Fucking hell, so much Buck Strickland this season. This time he's trying to make the store a more fun place to work at after having been banned from his favorite strip club.
Hang on, Donna. Mr. Strickland is trying to get a word in edgewise.
He's such a pathetic character that Hank has to constantly treat like this fucking baby, while also holding the belief that he's the most awesome guy ever. That is a character best used in moderation. It's one of the most bland and boring episodes of the show. I did not enjoy it. Maybe if it had come in like season 2 or 3, I'd be less harsh towards it, but at this point it really feels like the show is starting to run out of steam. I can at least be glad things haven't gotten too outlandish, it's still a pretty grinded show. But there's still 70 episodes left. Bobby and Joseph realize that instead of having to worry about getting a real job, they can instead just bum for money on the street. Very funny plot, reminded me of something that would have been done in an early season. I loved Hank almost smiling at the sight of Bobby being responsible, before finding out he's a bum. Favorite of the season, easily. Episode 200 sees Hank start to get bullied by his neighbor's son, which he, of course, doesn't want to admit to anyone. Great seeing Hank in such an emasculating situation, especially one he realistically can't do much about. You fucking hate the kid, he is such a punk, calling Hank dusty old bones full of green dust, whatever that means. Was fully expecting this to lead to him getting angry and spanking him in front of everyone, and that's what the issue becomes about. But I like that it stays small. It's a kid, of course no one is going to believe him, which helps to not feel like everyone is being overly mean towards Hank. And him wanting Bobby to annoy the parents as revenge was great, new favorite. And finally, Season 10 ends with Lucky asking for Peggy's help passing his GED. However, she doesn't want him dating Luann, and so is torn between whether or not she wants to help him. If this season had done anything, it's make me like Lucky. He's a cool guy. I'd drink a beer with him. I'm glad he and Luann are not getting married. Decent episode. Peggy sucks.
I know when you say guck, you really mean divorce? Crack? Condoms!
I I was pretty harsh towards the majority of this season, but those last couple episodes were pretty good. You've been hearing me say this the whole video, but the worst of it aren't even that bad. Maybe it's just because I've watched all of fucking Family Guy and Simpsons and Fairly Odd Parents and SpongeBob. You know, I know what fucking this seasonal rot can do to a show. So the fact that King of the Hills managed to go on this long while still being somewhat decent overall, pretty impressive. It does feel like they're running out of ideas, but I think Lucky is a good way of expanding things. You know, it's one more character they can at least pull new ideas from. So I'm excited to see where things go in Season 11. Our shortest season yet opens with the Peggy Horror Picture Show, which sees Hank excited that Peggy has made a new friend to talk about her woman problems with, but eventually realizes that Carolyn is a drag queen who thinks Peggy is a drag queen too.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I thought you were the best I'd ever seen.
It doesn't.
One of Peggy's strongest episodes. She really works best when she's not a massive, selfish, annoying, human. Bobby and Joseph's pranking escapades is one of the weaker B stories of the series, but it's still a pretty solid premiere. This just feels like an alternate take on that Mold episode. Honestly, a worse version, as Animal Control starts taking advantage of the city for money after Lucky's snake finds itself in the sewers. John Goodman's guest appearance was a nice surprise, but I hate the character he plays. It's kind of wasted on him. It's weird that everyone just blames this on Hank, even Nancy when her husband was literally there and could prove his innocence. Hank throwing a birthday for Lady Bird was the highlight. It's the first scene. The line art is a lot cleaner this season. Removes a bit of the visual charm.
Dad, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I've baked a cake.
What? No.
Bill's cousin returns, him refusing to sell the recipe to their family barbecue. It's charming seeing Bill and Bobby bond a bit when he joins in preparing the food, but it's got a pretty annoying ending. The guy is so morally insulted by Bill trying to sell the recipe, yet he sold all their family land after they died. I get that's the joke and all, but it results in an episode I have no interest in watching again. It's a shame it has to have such a forced conclusion. Luann is upset that Lucky is too busy looking for his grandfather's walnut stump, and so to get him back, she decides she's gonna go to the prom with the 15-year-old. It's just weird, like obviously she's doing this to make him jealous, but all it leads to are Lucky's two lackeys bullying a child and Peggy forcing him to go anyway. That's a funny idea, but it gets old by the end. Not that into this one.
I know it's not for a few years, but will you go to my prom with me?
Been a bit since we saw Cotton. Did he appear at all throughout season 10? It's here we meet Hank's cousin Dusty, a famous rock star who's also a real guy. Look him up. Did they just come up with this episode because the guy's second name is Hill? Either way, he decides to stick around the Hill House to film Hank for his reality prank show. It's pretty lame, everyone loves him except for Hank, naturally, as their whole production decide that fucking with him will become the whole gimmick of the show. It's annoying. Might be my least favorite of the whole thing. So Peggy's already lost her job at the newspaper, and so now decides she's gonna get a new job as a real estate agent. Just cuz.
How do you explain this pregnancy test I found in the trash behind your house?
My wife is pregnant.
Congratulations.
You know, when justifying her decisions to Hank, she always uses his love for Propian against him, like, this means to me what Propian means to you, which works every time, even though he's had a multi-decade-long passion for the thing. Yet she's only a real estate agent because she thinks it makes her important. By the end, she tries to act like this is for Connie's sake, but I have no reason to believe she's being genuine. Not the worst of the season, but still not a fan. A near-death experience leads to Bill spending more time with the Reverend, the two quickly forming a relationship.
He was in his car with some woman.
She was a prostitute!
Bill!
Just kidding, wasn't me.
Bill, outside.
You know this is gonna fall apart by the end, but I enjoy how uncomfortable all this makes Hank. Like, it genuinely disgusts him, made even worse when they tell him he's the only person who knows about this, as Bill starts getting him way too involved in their relationship. I wish they made it more clear why everyone was so grossed out by this. Is it because it's awkward having to hang around their Reverend so casually? Is it because Bill is a weirdo? Maybe I'd need to watch it again, but I felt it wasn't very clear. And him being the person to ruin things by getting bored the second it's not forbidden anymore is lame. They never implied he felt some kind of rush from this. Or maybe they did, I don't know, I'm zoning out. This is an awesome idea. So Hank gets really into playing a Grand Theft Auto-esque video game called Propean that already is just a super funny idea. I'm surprised they haven't done something like it sooner. You can tell the writers are maybe a little unaware of how video games are developed though. You're meant to believe two teenagers built something on the level of GTA overnight. That's a pretty big nitpick though, I'm aware. These guys can do it in one day. It takes Rockstar fucking 16 years. All in all, aside from a few bits of outdated technology, King of the Hill is a pretty timeless show. It's impressive considering we're well over 200 episodes by now. Pretty low-key episode. Hank becomes a video game addict and now needs to get past his desire to game. Reminds me of a sillier version of the cigarette one from like 3 hours ago. Best of the season, easily. Here's a pretty outrageous concept. I wouldn't be surprised if some hardcore fans consider this going too far. So I haven't mentioned it this far, but throughout the series, anytime Deal wants to use an alias, he always says his name is Rusty Shackleford. It's been here since season 2. Well, it's here we learn that Rusty Shackleford is a real person, who Deal previously thought was dead. Now he's returned to ask him to stop using his name for everything as it's messing with his life.
But that's impossible. Rusty died in 3rd grade.
I didn't die. I moved.
This is just the B-plot though, the Mian returning to Peggy's job as a realtor, as someone pretending to sell a house tricks her into selling kitchen appliances. I just don't see why we need another episode where Peggy falls for a pyramid scheme. I mean, why even have her be a realtor? Just make her unemployed if you want to keep getting her involved in these random odd jobs. Still though, got some good jokes and a funny ending, which is enough to put it over a majority of the rest of season 11. An episode like this could have been a whole lot worse. Nancy is incredibly stressed, only made worse when she's forced to spend some time alone with John Redcorn, the two considering giving back into their desires. This is all happening at the same time as her rapid hair loss, which she thinks is due to stress.
I should wait in the car. I don't want my baby to catch her stress. I am not giving birth to a bald baby.
Not as into Deal's B-plot where he thinks he's traveled into the future, or the past, or the end of the world. It's stupid, making him as dumb as possible just to try and justify Nancy more towards getting back with John. Getting to see her mum was neat, but I think it's pretty lame how all she learns is the one thing to fix her hair loss is getting back with John Redcorn. I guess it's to push her further towards this morally bad decision, making her rejecting it come off more satisfying. But I don't know, I'm not a fan of how they went about this one. They had to make John Redcorn such a plot device for it to work. Him openly discussing getting back together with her, not even acknowledging the reason he broke things off in the first place. Could have been an interesting episode, but the execution was just not there. This is like a tamer version of that Family Guy episode where Joe gets a new pair of legs and becomes a jerk, just with a whole lot more Bill.
Making me run!
Macho Man Randy Savage guy made me laugh a couple times, and that's it. I wish his transition into becoming a massive asshole, especially towards his friends, happened a bit more gradually. He gets punished pretty hard for it though, so I guess all is forgiven. It's a decent one. Our new shortest season yet ends with the long-awaited wedding of Luann and Lucky. This was actually planned to be the finale of the entire show, before Fox decided to renew it for a few more seasons. You can definitely tell, especially with all the callbacks to one-off characters from previous adventures, so in that regard, I think it would have made for a pretty solid send-off, even if the episode itself is just okay on its own, as Lucky sues Deal and eventually Strickland so he can afford the expensive wedding dress Luann wants. It's strange that Hank has such little presence in what was designed to be the finale, but I guess him giving her a wed does make for an emotional end, but at the same time, Bobby has nothing to do in a finale? Peggy? Usually when these shows have intended finales but continue anyway, you're left with a feeling of what if. What if it had ended here? And in King of the Hill's case, I think it would have been a fairly underwhelming conclusion. Fine as a standalone episode, and again, a super sweet ending, but other than that, it's fairly forgettable.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Turns out the show being picked up for another season during the production of season 12 caused the staff to remove one final scene from that last episode, a scene which would have acted as the show's farewell. It features Hank and his friends by the fence talking about the past year of their lives. That's right, the entire show took place over the span of one single year. Not sure how that works when Luann switched schools twice and Joseph went from this to this, but whatever, it's a cartoon. They also retcon some of the sillier episodes, like the one where Bill stole the tank or Hank finding out he was born in New York is nothing more than Bill's vivid dreams. Don't know if that's really funny or really lame.
Bill, those were all vivid dreams you had after you ate at that revolving Hungarian restaurant in McMainerberry.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I also really love the final shot being an inverse of how the first episode opened. Small way of having everything come full circle. Still though, despite everything, I still think if the show had ended here with this intended final scene, it would have been perfect. Despite me being so harsh towards a lot of these episodes, I still wouldn't consider it a bad season of TV, just kinda mediocre in comparison to what we were getting before. There have been a few positive inclusions in those last couple seasons. Again, I'm shocked at how much I turned around Unlucky, and it would have been very impressive to have gone out in a run that I could safely say had no outright awful episodes. And hey, they managed to tell over 200 stories without having to rely on a single anthology. That alone is worth my praise. I've seen a few people say that they wish the show had ended here, and I can't really blame them, I suppose. I guess I'm more so curious if season 12 and 13 are that much worse in comparison. Let's find out. Remember the fake King of the Hill movie trailer? That shit was funny.
Well, we saved the world from aliens, but Bobby is still 50 feet tall and Dale is still invisible.
It's true.
I really enjoyed this opening. Hank noticing that Bobby is actually taking an interest in football and wants to do whatever he can to not deter him. It's a surprisingly contained episode, the entire rest of it taking place during a Longhorns game, Hank being mistaken for an old player and getting a luxury box as a result.
Is it okay that I feel like I don't want to live anymore?
Yes, Bobby, that's normal.
It's a very funny one, probably one of the biggest cases of karma for Hank. As he lies to the Nebraskan team to try and make them lose, they win, and now has to avoid being known as the guy who caused Texas to lose the big game. The lengths he goes to avoid this is great, one of the better premieres in a while. In contrast, Bobby starts boycotting the school's newly installed soda dispensers, which leads to him falling for this activist girl. I know he stayed in middle school this entire show so far, but it's cool to see them continue to tackle these slightly more adult topics with him, like him feeling insecure about all his friends having a partner. And it's funny that he chooses to blame this lack of female attention on the school causing his obesity. Again though, where the fuck is Connie? I think the episode mostly falls flat. The girl he wants to be with is far too one-note. There's literally no reason why Bobby likes her other than she's a girl, and we're given no indication that she actually likes him as someone other than a protesting partner. I think they were trying to go for a power couple kind of thing, but we needed more of a reason to actually give a shit about them in the first place. By the time we got to their big walkout, I was already tuned off. Could have been another standout Bobby episode. Instead, it's one of the least interesting. Hank wants Bobby to join the school's Powder Puff team, which is a bunch of boys who dress up as cheerleaders during the girls' football game, which Peggy has a problem with, claiming the whole thing is sexist. Didn't realize this was an actual thing. Even crazier how supportive Hank is about the whole thing. You know, usually it's the other way around. I feel like Bobby would have been all over this 7 or 8 seasons ago. But here he's desperate to quit, despite knowing exactly what to do to make the funniest routine possible. It does feel like a rehash of a bunch of previous episodes, What Makes Bobby Run and Cheer Factor especially. But I think this one might be the best of all for the rarely seen dynamic between Bobby and Hank. Also a pretty good appearance from Peggy. Water park episode, and another that's made up of a bunch of C-plots. Bobby and his friends are blocked out of the big kid section of the place, while Bill starts getting recognized from waving at folks on the side of the road, and Boomhauer begins feeling old and uncool. It's funny that apparently everyone who works at this water park is evil, and I like that Bobby and Bill's stories wind up feeding into each other by that second half. Solid episode, going around the middle.
Bobby, have you seen my...
Peggy learns that Cotton doesn't have long to live, which Hank is in complete denial about. At first refusing to go and see him in hospital before realizing this really is the end. He dies, like actually he is killed off, spending a majority of his final appearance in bed with mere days to live. You know, for all the bad I've said about Cotton throughout this video, I actually really do like this one. It's taken seriously while not giving the whole thing an overly depressing tone. I also think it was smart to highlight his strong relationship with Bobby during the opening, which helps remind you that he's not completely cold and heartless. He's a bastard until his final moments with Hank, not allowing them to end things on any kind of heart-to-heart, which is a super in-character thing for him to do and naturally puts Hank in a horrible position.
I can't even look at you. How dare you love me?
But I don't. I don't love you.
I also really liked Peggy here, trying to help find the perfect last words for Hank to give him. Last words that his dad won't be utterly disgusted by. The final 5 minutes are very awkward to watch, him not giving his son a break, before Peggy finally steps in and stands up for Hank, giving Cotton the ultimate verbal beatdown, a beatdown so severe that it kills him. Makes me like Peggy a whole lot more. I am shocked the show committed to a decision like this. I'm honestly really happy, as they've unquestionably done everything they possibly could with a character like this, and I really couldn't think of a better send-off. I can see some fans, probably those who actually liked his character, being a tad upset it doesn't even acknowledge his wife or kid or how Bobby reacts to this, and it does choose to ignore the few times Cotton did express some minuscule level of care for his son, but for the time they had, I'm happy they chose to keep the focus here on Cotton and Hank almost exclusively. Peggy just lies to him, telling Hank everything he wants to hear, which gives him the closure you want to see him get, without Cotton having to give some uncharacteristically sappy final words. R.I.P. Cotton Hill. Don't keep the devil waiting. Hank decides that he's going to become co-owner of a local co-op shop after falling in love with its organic meat. It's funny how impressed they are with his abilities of managing a store with slight efficiency. It's a very nothing problem kind of episode, making fun of lame hippies who start to freak out now that Hank has started making them an actual profit. I've noticed a lot more episodes that revolve around mocking hypocritical liberal types recently, and while I don't really mind the epic ponage of the libs every now and then, it just doesn't make for a very entertaining story. Some funny moments, but it's pretty middle of the road despite the sweet ending. Bobby's carnival is being ruined by this guy hired to oversee the school, wanting to ensure the thing is 100% politically correct.
To genocide.
What? My dad hasn't done any of those things. I mean, my grandpa Cotton maybe a little, but...
It is bizarre they haven't yet had him acknowledge Cotton dying. Maybe this got aired out of order, I don't know. It's an annoying-ass episode. This guy constantly stepping in and causing issues where there were none. Was a little funny the first, maybe second scene, but I think something like this could have worked better as a B-plot. It's got as much depth as one. He just makes all the kids feel guilty for the races they've apparently oppressed. Got old fast. So the cons still want to join this goddamn country club, with Min taking up skeet shooting to impress them. Wasn't expecting a pairing between her and Deal, but it fits surprisingly well. Not to mention we're 12 seasons in, I'm honestly shocked they've been still able to offer new pairings with relatively the same cast from 1997. It's charming that she gradually begins enjoying the time she spends with these hillbillies. And the fact that it actually ends with them getting into the club was unexpected. Could have sworn they would have kept that going for as long as possible. Still though, it's alright. Alright guys, we're on King of the Hill Season 12. It's 2007, so I think it's time to start tackling plots more hip with the times. Peggy tries to make a viral internet video.
Look! Someone else watched it!
Hey! 4 hits! I think we viral! Yeah!
I wish they did more with it because I preferred it to Hank and Deal's adventure, setting out in a vacation to learn how to weave baskets. I think it's meant to be funny that they act as if this has been his lifelong dream, treating it like one of his defining character traits, but it's not. I liked this shot, that's about it. Hank takes Ladybird to a dog spiritualist after she goes crazy and bites him. Not a bad idea, again, I can't get enough of Hank and his dog, and the stakes have never been higher, having to prevent her from attacking again or else she'll be put down. But I just find myself completely bored by the conflict in the end, her going death before being able to attack. Not a bad one by any means, it's going towards the center of my list, more of a testament to how middling the rest of Season 12 has been so far. I like Lucky. Do people like Lucky? Is it one of those things where some fans are like, oh, when Lucky was introduced, the show got bad? Because I like him. That title, I don't know, I was expecting a much more controversial episode. It's about trans vets as they get banned in Ireland. I find a lot of the best episodes of King of the Hill that dedicate themselves to making fun of more democratic ideals usually succeed by sticking all these traits onto one single memorable character, which can be funny. Sure, it's a straw man, but they do the same for conservative characters too. And also, straw man characters can be funny sometimes. Whereas the worst tend to feature an army of straw men, who spout their outlandish ideas and then suck each other's cocks about their outlandish ideas. Could have been an alright episode, but I don't like how quickly it diverts to being about Strickland enlisting Hank's help in selling their unhealthy meat products illegally. Thought it would be going for more of a prohibition thing, but it doesn't really seem like there's much struggle. The cops are being paid off, the people who caused this to happen also go to his place to eat. It's more so about Hank's moral dilemma about breaking the law, but also not really having much of a reason to be. And even that gets dropped after a new rival food truck drives all their business away. It's another episode that starts with a good idea, but doesn't execute on it in a way that's very entertaining. This episode actually has two titles, originally called Three Men and a Bastard, which caused me about 5 minutes of confusion. I thought I missed one.
Who can pluck the longest hair from their head? Kate, you first.
I don't think...
You don't have to.
Ow! Hey!
Phil starts dating a lady who also had a history with John Redcorn. And guess where this goes? It's a funny idea. Deal later assumes that the kid is his because they look like Joseph, and now he doesn't want Bill taking care of his daughter. Didn't think it was necessary to include the incest C-plot, where Joseph has fallen for who Deal believes is his half-sister. But I still think it's one of the better episodes of the season. One of Deal's funniest, at least. And he references Lost. I like Lost.
2, 2, 1.
After learning that his car salesman has been screwing him over, Hank decides to team up with a group of college students who take this payback way too far.
Peggy wants a convertible.
She knows you're a heterosexual, right?
I just don't know why it needs to take over half the episode to get to that point. It's an especially slow one. I know there's a lot of people who don't like King of the Hill due to how slow it can be, and while I tend to disagree with that assessment, it's the whole vibe, take it or leave it. This is one of the few episodes where I find the whole thing to drag. Picks up once they actually commit the crime of burning all the guys' cars, but by that point the episode's near over. Peggy sells Dex Shepard a house in Enrique's neighborhood, with him and the rest of his hipster buddies disrupting the peace. Forgot Peggy was a real estate agent for a while.
Love 'em or hate 'em, they want to talk about 'em. Bring up the popular girls, and I promise your problem will be getting her to shut up.
I enjoyed Hank's B-plot where he's strong-armed into giving a speech at Enrique's daughter's quinceañera. It captures the awkwardness of these small-town dynamics well, him having to spend time with this kid he barely knows. It's another slow episode in terms of pace, but I actually think it works in its favor, seeing Hank actually enjoy hanging out with this kid, and I like that both plots are intertwined from the start. It's okay. Peggy decides to become a stricter parent after some guy calls her out, which I get is based off a real thing that probably happens, like it's an exaggerated portrayal of how I'm sure some parents actually feel about this thing, but it sucks. We know Bobby isn't a bad kid, he doesn't do a single bad thing in this episode beforehand, and so the whole thing just feels needless. One of the worst. Surprisingly, Peggy isn't as obnoxious as she usually is, but it's still one of the weakest of the season.
First one to breakfast gets to sit on my lap.
Gross. Con becomes a star at the local karaoke bar after avoiding his visiting father-in-law.
Sympathy for Con.
Know what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Who wants a beer?
I'm good.
Oh, man.
It's a pretty solid one. I like how it opened with Con bragging about getting to stay at home for work, receiving instant karma once Min's dad invades the home. I don't hate Con, but I've never especially liked him either. Completely ambivalent. So when an episode actually has me rooting for him, I'd say that episode has done something right. Peggy hires a group of actors who can help her sell a house better than the current family living there. I really don't care for it. It kinda sucks. I don't mind these sillier plots, but I do hear it's stupid. She sells her own house because she's Peggy fucking Hill and she sucks at everything and makes Hank's life a living hell. Okay, this might be one of Deal's worst episodes, as he sends Joseph to a prestigious private school and isn't able to keep up with their ways of living. He completely goes against his son's wishes, Joseph making it explicitly clear he wants no part of this. He got himself in this situation, so you don't really give a shit that he fucked up so enormously, especially not when all the other characters have to chip in their own money to fix his problem for him. Bad episode. Here's a fun idea I wasn't expecting, as Peggy organizes a murder mystery birthday party on a train. Cool seeing everyone's swanky outfits. It's funny for Luann to immediately spoil the twist, which leads to Hank and her making the best out of a bad situation and everyone else trying to figure out who fucked on the train. Great idea with really good execution. One of the best in a while. Definitely one of the strongest Hank and Peggy episodes. This guy has it out for Hank after he accidentally steals his wallet.
Now maybe we can reopen the fanny pack discussion?
No.
I like how much we learn about this guy. Gives you an understanding of why he's had enough of being fucked around. Although Hank could have easily explained the situation to him, this is kind of on him. Deal's B-plot is also incredibly dumb but incredibly funny. He tries to get a job at a Hooters knockoff so he can sue for discrimination. But no, the guy gives him the job and expects him to perform. He's fucking good at it too. Great episode. And finally, our, let's be honest, weakest season yet ends on a pretty monumental moment, as Luann's dad and Peggy's brother makes his first appearance. He's voiced by Johnny Knoxville, again, and it's pretty much just a worse version of the one where her mum returns. He acts all nice at first before falling into his bad habits, although this time there's a lot less nuance to it. He commits a crime and convinces Lucky that he needs to be the one to take the blame. It's just such a basic episode for what should be a big moment. I really didn't like it.
PP money is not an employment history.
This is easily the worst season of the show yet. It started alright, but by that middle point, kinda nosedived. There's some solid episodes in here I enjoyed, so I can't fully say I wish this season was never made. You know, it did stop at the last one. But if this is what the show was 12 seasons in, then I guess let's just say I'm happy Fox decided to call it quits at 13. One more to go before the big reboot, so let's see how King of the Hill ended for a second time, technically. Bill is told that he's in the early stages of diabetes, with this mean doctor letting him know that if he keeps up, he'll have to take his legs, and so he starts using a wheelchair. It's a weird episode. You feel really bad for him at first, not being able to control his diet, but things divert once he meets an athlete who wants to help him manage his day by day, obviously not realizing he doesn't actually need a wheelchair. For like a split second, I thought the irony would be that Bill ends the episode actually needing a wheelchair for the future, but then I realized they couldn't beat the Family Guy comparisons if that were the case. It's one of those liar-revealed stories where he eventually finds out Bill didn't need one, and now he doesn't know if they can be friends. Plot you've seen before, but I thought it was executed really well. I liked it. Any episode where we get to see Bill have fun for a change is an episode worth remembering. Lots of great jokes too. So far, season 13 is starting off a whole lot better than 12. Strickland Propane hires Deal to help with their carbon offsets, after a controversy surrounding them is at threat of coming out. However, he and Hank's boss seem more focused on the attention this environmentalism gets from women. I find it to be pretty boring, with a very on-the-nose message. Mr. Strickland just might be my least favorite character of the whole show. So the guy from Khan's Country Club wants to tear down a house in the neighborhood to make way for a mansion. A house that Hank and his buddies just spent ages working on, and so now they want to protest the new build. Fuck, it is a lame episode, one of my least favorite. Contains one of the most action-packed third acts as they all band together to help demolish the house during a storm, and now they need to defend themselves in court. But, like, you know, the house was coming down anyway, they all could have just done nothing and it still would have fallen over. It's dumb. Yep. A MySpace episode was crazy in 2008. People had just moved on to Facebook by this point, as one of Strickland's employees starts treating their company page like her own personal one. Obviously, this was probably written in 2007, so they couldn't have predicted that MySpace would effectively die during production, but even Facebook is irrelevant now, which helps the episode stand as a time capsule of a period in internet history long gone. It's still surprisingly relevant today, the company advertising itself through social media by doing anything other than actually talking about their products, which, of course, works and annoys Hank. Do fans hate this episode? I could see that, you know. I find it funny watching Hank have to deal with this pre-Facebook mom who's way too personal on her page. Good episode.
But on MySpace, you get to know someone real fast. And it turns out Thatherton's as obsessed with Weezer as I am.
What's Weezer?
Exactly.
Hank is pissed off that Joseph and Bobby are sent to the special ed class to help the school's grade point average.
Oh, my sweet, sweet boy. Look at you. Come here. Come give your mama a hug.
Okay.
It's funny, this is all on purpose, them feeling the test to get out of doing more at work. It's great just how mad Hank gets seeing Bobby get away with the absolute bare minimum. I liked this one a lot as well. Peggy, Min, and Deal decide to play the stock market by observing what an average guy like Bill is purchasing, with him happy that people actually want to spend time with him. I don't think Hank is right to accuse Peggy of using Bill. In my opinion, both parties get something out of this. He's even cool with it after they come clean. But of course, we can't have anything. Bill lets this go to his head, thinking his thoughts truly matter on this stuff, which leads to Peggy and all no longer trusting his opinion. Pretty shitty episode, feels like a worse version of the Peggy Pyramid Scheme one. Do you know how fucking annoying it is to keep track of these episodes when you have one titled The Order of the Straight Arrow and then this one Straight as an Arrow?
My video games are violent. Making all these faces explode can't be good for me.
Oh, sure it can, sweetie.
It's weird, it's clearly a follow-up, 12 seasons later, but at the same time, it's about Bobby joining. But wasn't he already a member? I don't know. Boy, I hate their new neighbor. Getting mad at Hank for not disciplining Bobby more. I get it's meant to contrast how kind he was during that first half, and I do get that people like this do exist, but I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I like Luann and Lucky's B-plot though, where they straight up demand the wedding gifts they never got from everyone. They are relentless, but unfortunately it doesn't really make up for the mean. Finally, seeing the show jump to widescreen was insane. Got a new intro and everything. Shirt still turns blue. Lucky invites his sister over for Luann's baby shower, with her and Peggy having conflicting ideals about how to take care of their upcoming baby. Peggy realizing all her parenting advice is incredibly outdated was a neat place to take it. You feel bad for her. It's not Peggy being egotistical, she's sharing all she knows. Not the funniest episode out there, but I thought the conflict was great. Hank's gotta join Buck Strickland on a trip to Memphis after learning he's gonna be inducted into the Propane Hall of Fame. It's funny how Hank spends the majority of the first act waiting for the moment that Buck screws up. Like always. And us learning there's another Strickland Propane run by his bastard son made for a really interesting twist. I don't think we've ever seen Hank this disillusioned with Strickland. It was really cool to see him finally tell him what for. One of the best of, what's so far, a pretty good season. Nice seeing Buck actually do something to help Hank for a change. Another episode that feels like an alternate take on the pilot, as Bobby has the ultimate trump card on his parents after they fail to pick him up from the mall. I like that Hank finds Olive Garden to be the classiest of restaurants. You feel bad that one of their rare good nights out gets tainted so much, the two starting to blame each other for causing their delay. But you also understand why Bobby feels the way he does too. Great episode. Dude, season 13 has been a big improvement so far. Hank needs to get plastic surgery after Bill breaks his nose, resulting in one of the most forgettable episodes of the series. It takes over half the thing for him to even get his new nose. And from there, it's just a lamer version of that episode where SpongeBob breaks his butt. He's unable to play their match without being overly concerned about injuring himself, but it's all clearly just an excuse to not play and lose the game.
I love my perfect nose. Is it so wrong to be beautiful?
Probably the worst Hank dealing with his trauma episodes we've gotten. I really have nothing to say other than, it could have been good. Peggy starts hanging out with this cool mom to try and learn how to be cool, as Bobby begins trying to meet with girls outside of school. I enjoy everything with the etiquette class, and I do like Hank's low-stakes B-story, him falling in love with this sandwich shop where the food is great, but he's gotta be around the most obnoxious people ever. But I find the way they conclude it to be so lame. Peggy overthinks what's considered cool, dressing her and Bobby up like dorks for the big cool party, but then it turns out that the cool lady wants to know how to be more like Peggy. It's an alright episode. Got a lot of good jokes.
She walks with this interesting straight-legged saunter. I think I should start doing that.
Stop that.
Nancy moves to Dallas because of work, which gives Deal the perfect opportunity to turn their house into an igloo. New setting with new characters, which is cool to see, but the setting is uninteresting and so are the characters. One of the weakest. She turns out to be a bitch when she doesn't have Deal to take care of. That's it. I will never have the desire to watch an episode like this ever again. Coming up to the 4th of July as Hank starts a war with those guys from the plastic surgery episode over who has the better decorations. Don't know how I feel about them introducing 4 new characters. These guys have apparently always considered their rivals this late into the show.
Right here, right now.
Get out of here, Bobby. If those kids could read, they'd be very upset.
I enjoy the subplot where Bobby has to go with Lucky to his church, which is inside a fucking taekwondo studio, and gets super into getting people to repent for their sins. And it's cool getting to see another side to Hank, one who actually is pushed into building this ultra-fun 4th of July celebration. Don't think we've ever seen him partake in a war like this either, especially towards the end. But it works, I liked this one. Thank Christ, I was wondering when we'd come back to this.
It's like you don't have any respect for me.
Of course I don't. Look at you.
Hank, at last, receives Cotton's final request. Him wishing for his ashes to be flushed down a toilet used by some general guy. I love how it builds off the opening where Hank desperately wants to learn something about his dad. This adventure being the perfect chance to see what he was about, deep down. Bill and Dale getting into a fight and trying to convince the neighborhood that the other is awful was very extreme, but I thought it contained some of the funniest one-liners of the past few seasons. This was a great episode, one of season 13's best. Hank feels like Bobby's baseball coach is setting him up for disappointment, and so he tries to find a way to temper his expectations, which is weird. Bobby is genuinely motivated. You'd think Hank, someone who has such beliefs about hard work paying off, would be happy to see his son actually try.
Last I heard, you wanted to see him quit baseball.
Watch it, Bill. I'm just looking for an ass to kick.
It makes sense within the context of the episode, us seeing a montage of his continued disappointment in Bobby's baseball abilities, and I think it goes in a really interesting place. Bobby actually does get better, but Hank can't feel as proud as he wants to knowing he was such a prick about this. It's like a better version of Chicken Little. God, for a second I thought that said Epstein. I'm glad we finally get another episode where Luann gets something to do that isn't solely related to her kid or marriage, as she expands her Manger Baby show into a kids' entertainment business, struggling to stay hip with the times. I like Lucky's B-plot where he has to take care of their kid alone, and I think Dale and Luann are similar levels of stupid, so seeing their standoff at the halfway point was a highlight. I also enjoy that Hank is completely aware and outspoken about how stupid this whole story is. Also, fun fact. Apparently, this is the last time John Redcorn appears in the show, at least until the revival, And it's not like they had been regularly using him before this point, and I know there's only like 15 episodes left, realistically. But it's weird to think about, right?
I fully support Luann's ambition to be the breadwinner.
Did he record that line from a flip phone? What the fuck is that audio quality? This is one of the other episodes I know is infamous among fans of the series, and not in a good way. Boomhauer house swaps with a French-Canadian family, who completely go against all the stereotypes the neighborhood was expecting, and by that, I mean they're assholes.
Mom, can I have another half-liter of OJ, please?
What? Bobby, we speak English in this house.
I like how much of a slow burn it is. You not being totally sure if they're just being mean to Peggy, or all of them, or if it's just a misunderstanding. And I did enjoy a lot of the more casual scenes of them all just hanging out in Hank's backyard. I really don't understand why people have such hatred towards this episode. Sure, it's not like the best King of the Hill ever, but I could think of much worse from this show. Hank's worried that Bobby is being taken advantage of when a group of girls invite him to hang out. I find it a tad lame they reveal from the beginning the girls have ulterior motives, but I at least like that you don't know what their plan is until later.
We'll have him home late.
Oh my God. My boy is a girl.
That plan is just fucking basic though. They just wanted some sap to tag along with them and act as their project, It's not awful, but you think Bobby would have been able to recognize what they were doing a lot sooner. They had to fucking spell it out for him by the end. So, despite there still being a few episodes left, To Sirloin with Love was written to be the new finale to the series. So, did this make for the satisfying conclusion that it was for years? Actually, yeah. A lot better than the last, at least. Obviously, they'd be stupid to write another definitive ending, especially seeing how the last one had to literally be deleted from the final cut. And so I really appreciate how small this one is, while still including a few nods to it being the last episode. Also feels like a more suited concept for a finale, not being about a wedding or a funeral or the characters going to space. Instead, it's very small scale, solely focusing on the relationship between Hank and Bobby, which has always been the core of the show that I feel certain later seasons began to overlook. Hank finds out that Bobby is incredibly skilled at discerning different cuts and qualities of meat, a quality he picked up from him. And so Bobby joins and then quits a meat inspecting team, and Hank has to find out for himself just how crazy the competition can be. Given these Hank-Bobby pairings are by far the most frequent, it fits this would be the end. Parallels episode 1 really well by showing their growth as characters. It's nice to end things with them being able to bond over a shared interest, Bobby even getting his own grill. Couldn't think of a better way to conclude the series, especially with each of the main cast getting their own little moment at the end. Too bad the season still has 4 episodes left. So Hank's mom is getting ready to marry someone she barely knows, although after an almost immediate argument she takes off with her RV, which leaves Hank needing to find her. Admittedly, it's gotta be hard to follow up on the last episode, but god was this one boring. I don't find Hank's mum to be an interesting character. We've only seen her like 3 times in the entire show. Hank calling her out for being, well, plain old stupid, made for a funny ending, but it's still one of the weakest. Bill's loneliness leads to him bringing in some roommates. God, I hate Hank during this one, taking charge over who he wants to live at Bill's house. This is another pretty bad one. I really don't like Principal Moss, and so him moving in with Bill didn't make for many good moments. It's pretty miserable, honestly. I liked the ending, though, him finally being comfortable being alone. Steele gets himself sent into a home after thinking he's got dementia, and needs to find a way out to stop Joseph from screwing his girlfriend. I like how much he just wants to bond with his kid, but other than that, not into it. Such a stupid concept, and not in a good way. Finally, season 13 ends with Khan being left alone while Min is out traveling, and Hank convincing him to stop taking his medication. His manic depression medication. That is a really neat idea. We get a look at a side of Khan we've never seen before. A much nicer side before his depression comes back. It's pretty fucked that Hank and his friends begin trying to regulate his medicine for him, but I think it worked. I enjoyed this one a ton.
What if you gave him one of Coach's pep talks, Hank?
Now that's a great idea. Why don't you go into the girls' locker room and put on a skirt, Wendy? Oh, you gonna cry? Huh? Yeah.
Season 13 of King of the Hill, I think is pretty good. Even if I do think we didn't need any of those 4 episodes after the finale. But I understand it aired out of order, you know? Honestly, I think I preferred it to season 12, 11, 10, maybe even 9. It is crazy this show did not have the fall off that Family Guy or Simpsons did, but I guess imagine if it went on 3 times as long. Well, okay, it might actually, because it is bizarre to think this didn't come out that long ago.
Are we all gender?
It's the return of the king, as Hank and Peggy return from Saudi Arabia, where they've been living for years after he was transferred. They're immediately taken aback by how much things have changed. Boomhauer is a kid, Nancy now sells homes, Bill is morbidly obese, and most importantly, Bobby's partially running his own restaurant at 21. He runs into Connie during the episode, in which we learn that they haven't kept in touch. But nothing comes of it yet. I guess that's the advantage of knowing your show is going to be on streaming. You don't have to worry about paying off every plot thread in every episode. I think the time jump is genius. Offers something new plot-wise, as well as justifies all the modern humor like all-gendered bathrooms, hybrid cars, getting cancelled. Sounds cringe, right? Very well could have been, but I think it works. The whole gimmick of the original series was Hank reacting to the changes of the modern world, so I don't think anything is too different here. The animation, is doing the best it can, I guess. Everything is rigged now, and while the original didn't have stellar animation or anything, it was a whole lot better than this. I like rigged animation when it's not used for the sake of being cheap, In a world where Simpsons and Family Guy can still be hand-drawn, I don't buy the idea that studios no longer know how to handle a pipeline like this. It's just a whole lot more expensive. Not much to say about the episode itself. Hank and Peggy wonder if they made the right move coming back, but decide to stay because, for all its faults, it's their home with the people they love. I like that something as simple as seeing a few Girl Scouts convinced them to stay. That just because things are different doesn't make them bad. Really sweet. Peggy sounds weird, Deal sounds way different, but it's clearly the same guy. You can just tell everyone's aged, but again, the characters are 15 years older, so it doesn't not work. Brittany Murphy also sadly passed away shortly after the original series ended, so Luann isn't here. Curious if they'll mention her at any point. Either way, a 2025 King of the Hill revival could have been a whole lot worse than this. I'm sure there are some fans mixed on it, but I'm really curious to see where it goes for the rest of the season. So far, I'm liking it. Hank decides that homebrewing would be the perfect retirement hobby. A beer, not 3DS's. Neat getting to see Joseph again, as it becomes clear that Bobby still has feelings for Connie he hasn't figured out. I was a bit worried at first that each of these episodes would see Bobby and Hank be completely separated, Bobby being an adult with his own life and stuff. And maybe they will fall into that eventually, so I'm at least glad we get a story between the two of them early, competing against each other in a beer brewing contest. I think I'd be quicker to rewatch the previous, but the beer story is still pretty good. I'm sure the time skip is by default making them more interesting, but it's really cool they can do episodes like this. The pros of Bobby and I being an adult. One of the strongest endings of the show in my opinion too. It's cool seeing Hank and Bobby get to chill out and drink beers with each other.
Hank, what's Peggy doing in the alley?
Well, normally I would be teaching.
Didn't she stop being a substitute teacher in season 7? It's like it's written as if the later seasons didn't happen. In another universe, this episode would have been titled Bobby Gets Cancelled. It's basically what it is. Unfortunately, during production of the revival, Deal's original voice actor, Johnny Hardwick, passed away, and so from this point on, he's permanently replaced. And sadly, it is pretty noticeable.
Bobby is not our little boy anymore. He is his own man.
All right, then. That man ain't right.
Bobby gets chewed out by some guy who thinks his restaurant is guilty of cultural appropriation, him needing to find out a way to get authentic charcoal. Dude, I'm really not a fan of Deal's way of speaking in this revival. I don't know if it's Johnny Hardwick during some of it and he's just older, or if it's the new guy trying to imitate him, but either way, it makes the B story pretty weak. Definitely the worst of the revival, even if I do enjoy everything with Bobby's meal at the end.
Let it hit him.
As Hank joins Boomhauer on his handyman for hire app and struggles to get 5 bananas, Bobby finally reconnects with Connie, who he learns is now dating his old bully and current boss. I know a lot of people don't like how they handled Connie in this reboot, and going in I wondered if this was merely a result of people wanting a fairy tale ending, where these two childhood friends reconnect and get married and have a girl named Bonnie. But either way, I find it strange that Bobby latched so hard onto her relationship from when he was 12, but I also think it's annoying that Connie acts so ignorant towards it all, setting him up with one of her friends. It's probably the most I've laughed at one of these revival episodes, and I loved everything with Hank learning to open up about his fears towards retirement, going towards the top. Hank is embarrassed to let his friends know that he now coaches a soccer team. Him now loving soccer is a great detail that showcases the differences in these characters now. Bobby's B-plot also builds off the original series really well, even if unintentionally, with him trying to get the best deal possible on a car without being tricked into overpaying. Reminded me of the one where Hank gets fucked up on a car purchase.
I know a nice guy like you wouldn't murder a sweet horse like this.
God, dude, the animation fucking sucks. The line art's gross, the characters look so flat. All that subtle depth that came through the hand-drawn artwork is completely lost, and the boarding is so flat. I really don't like the way this revival looks. There's this cheap feel to it all.
Min started a lifestyle blog. Well, good for her. Unsubscribe.
Probably our busiest episode yet. Hank finds out that Bill's been lying to his new group of friends about being married to Peggy. Bobby learns that Connie and her boyfriend are in an open relationship. All while Peggy isn't sure what to do with herself and starts wanting to know more about Bill's lies about her life. Again, they focus back on her being a substitute teacher in this one, like she didn't end the last show as a real estate agent. Also, okay, Connie does suck. I completely see why people don't like her. She's just written to be so pretentious. Still though, decent episode. So Bobby's got this new girl, Willow, from the end of last episode, and he's upset that on a football retreat Hank is paying her more attention than him. This is the perfect evolution of what this show is all about, Bobby and Hank struggling to bond, but not in a more man-to-man way. I loved this one. Surprised it's taken them this long to acknowledge Khan, especially since Min has made a couple small appearances so far. It's pretty sad. Turns out she had divorced him years ago, but are still trying to uphold their image as a happily married couple.
Hey, I know why you don't want to knock down the pins. It's because they have red necks, just like you.
His new voice actor took some getting used to, but I thought it was really interesting. Again, it's the perfect way to take advantage of the time skip. I will say though, I am getting sick of this will they, won't they between Bobby and Connie. I'd be surprised if anything did come from it, but if not, it'll make all of this just seem like such a waste of time. We'll see though. Oh fuck, I was not expecting something like this. We're reintroduced to Good Hank, Cotton's kid. Yeah, I forgot about him. With regular Hank joining him at a retreat where he'll learn how to become an alpha male. Hank envisions his dad calling him a soy boy.
Man, she gets to think she's dating you. You'll actually be clapping her friends.
Clapping her what?
You feel kind of bad for Peggy having a panic attack during an MRI, but it just leads to her bugging Bobby at his apartment. It's cool seeing them bond a bit though. There's been so much focus on Hank and Bobby, so getting some of him and Peggy makes for a nice change of pace. It is weird they bothered showing Junichiro only for him not to get acknowledged at all, but I thought it was cool. This was one of the best, easily. Was gonna say it's cool seeing Hank in a grandfather role before remembering they're brothers. And finally, the first season of the revival ends with Connie and Bobby struggling to start their relationship again, realizing they don't know as much about each other as they assumed they would. I thought all that stuff was great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with these two in the next season. Not as into Peggy joining Boomhauer on his new business plan and Hank being left out, but it was cool seeing Buck Strickland again. I just find it to be a tad too silly in tone compared to what you're used to from this show. Still though, it's a good episode. That's it. Even if I can acknowledge it will not please everyone, especially with all the voice actors getting replaced, I think King of the Hill Season 14 is the prime example of a great revival. I think about Futurama's Hulu revival from a few years back, in which it seems like the goal was to just make more episodes, which Mike Judge easily could have done for this one, but I appreciate that he went one step further. That time skip really makes all the difference. Even as someone who only started watching this show a couple months ago, it really makes you feel like you've watched these characters grow up. There's something really special about that. Not a lot of animated shows get away with this. Still though, one episode did have to be the best, and one episode did have to be the worst, so let's get the ranking. I'll talk about further thoughts on the show after. At the bottom of my list, we have 268. I counted Returning Japanese Part 1 and 2 as one episode. We have The Courtship of Joseph's Father, Nancy Goes Dallas, The Honeymooners, 6 Characters in Search of a House, Trans-Fascism, Earthly Girls Are Easy, Life, a Loser's Manual, Hank Gets Dusty, When Joseph Met Lori and Made Out with Her in the Janitor's Closet, Unfortunate Son, Sir Punt, 24-Hour Propane People, Bill Gathers Moss, When Cotton Comes Marching Home, A Bill Full of Dollars, Church Hopping, Bill's House, Behind Closed Doors, Straight as an Arrow, Smoking in the Bandit, Death Buys a Timeshare, Blah, My Nose, Square-Footed Monster, Enrique Syllable Differences, It Ain't Over Till a Fat Neighbor Sings, Care Taking Care of Business, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret Hill, Bystand Me, Glenn Peggy, Glenn Ross, Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, The Passion of Dotrieve, Bobby Ray, Uh-Oh Canada, It Came from the Garage, Tears of an Inflatable Klein, Peggy's Fiat-Eyed, The Boy Can't Help It, The Final Shinsult, Arlen City Bomber, The Patriot Act, Board Games, Joust Like a Woman, Lupe's Revenge, Blood and Sauce, Peggy's Fanfare, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Alamo, Redcorn Gambles with His Future, Raise the Sticks, Bill of Seals, Hank's Bad Hair Day, Arrowhead, After the Mold Rush, Après Hank Le Deluge, Deal Tech, The Redneck on Rainy Street, Yard She Blows, The Company Man, The Buck Steps Here, Bill Bulk and the Body Buddies, Dreamweaver, Flirting with the Master, Cheer Factor, Ceci Nest Pay Un King of the Hill, I don't know. Bobby Gets Grilled, A Man Without a Country Club, It's Not Easy Being Green, The Fat and the Furious, Accidental Terrorist, You gotta believe in moderation. Deal be not pride, deal to the chief. Hank fixes everything. Luann gets lucky. Fish and wildlife. Torch song hillology. Moving on up. Old Glory. Hank's cowboy movie. Snow Job. Peggy makes the big leagues. Orange, you glad I didn't say banana? The Order of the Straight Arrow. Megalodeel. Rodeo Days. King of the Anthill. Deconstructing Henry. Flush with Power. Transnational Amusements presents Peggy's Magic Sex Feed. The Good Buck. The Witches of East Arlen. Doggone Crazy. The Year of Washing Dangerously. I Never Promised You an Organic Garden. Gone with the Windstorm. Made in Arlen. Portrait of the Artist as a Young Klein. Edumacating Lucky. Harlot Time. Pour Some Sugar on Con. Lady and Gentrification. Pygmalion. Full Metal Dust Jacket. Bluegrass is always greener. Taking it to the streets. Fun with Jan and Jan. Yankee Hanky. What makes Bobby run? The Substitute Spanish Prisoner. Of Mice and Little Green Man. Business is picking up. Take Me Out of the Ball Game. Born Again on the 4th of July. The Powder Puff Boys. Conscious Uncoupling. Vision Quest. Fear and Loathing. The Trouble with Gribbles. To Kill a Ladybird. Bad News Bill. Revenge of the Lutefisk. The Men Who Knew Too Much. Dang Ol' Love. Four-Wave Intersection. Sweet Smells of Excess. Assigned or Investment. The Beer Story. I Remember Mono. Junkie Business. A Firefight and We Will Go. New Reffentine. Hank's Unmentionable Problem. 9 Pretty Darn Angry Men. Plastic White Female. Jumpin' Crack Bass. Texas City Twister. Good Hill Huntin'. 3 Coaches and a Bobby. Escape from Party Island. Peggy's Gone to Potts. Lucky's Wedding Suit. Bobby Slam. Soldier of Misfortune. Cotton's Plot. Untitled Blake McCormick Project. Meet the Propaniacs. Peggy Hill, The Decline and Fall. Bad Girls, What You Gonna Do? The Texas Skill Saw Massacre. The Miseducation of Bobby Hill. An Officer and a Gentle Boy. Chore Money, Chore Problems. Westy Side Story. Boxing Luann. Reborn to be Wild. My Hair Lady. Girl, You'll Be a Giant Soon. Talkin' Shop. A Rover Runs Through It. No Bobby Left Behind. Any Given Hill Day. What Happens at the National. Uncool Customer. Manger Baby. Einstein. Traffic Jam. Queasy Rider. Lucky C. Monkey Do. Be True to Your Fool. Just Another Manic Con Day. New Cowboy in the Block. That's What She Said. Diabolic Shock. Goodbye Normal Jeans. The Sun Also Roses. Strangeness on a Train. Master of Puppets. My Own Private Rodeo. I'm With Cupid. Serves Me Right for Giving. Lost in My Space. Won't You Pee My Neighbor? Naked Ambition. Father of the Bride. Kidney Boy and Hamster Girl. A Love Story. The Father, the Son, and JC. Life in the Fast Lane. Bobby Saga. Husky Bobby. 3 Days of the Condo. The Peggy Horror Picture Show. Hank's on Board. Bobby on Track. No Hank Left Behind. Wings of the Dope. Death in Texas. Bills Are Made to Be Broken. Slide of Hank. Love Hurts and So Does Art. To Spank with Love. Peggy's Pageant Fever. Pregnant Pause. Next of Shin. A Beer Can Named Desire. Helenium. Return of the King. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Living on Reds, Vitamin C, and Propane. Not in My Backhoe. Patch Boomhauer. Luann Virgin 2.0. Cops and Robert. Nancy Boys. The Perils of Polling. The Exterminator. To Sirloin with Love. Death Picks Cotton. Hank's Back. Dances with Dogs. Hank's Choice. Night and Deity. Get Your Freak Off. Happy Thanksgiving. Meet the Manger Babies. Stressed for Success. Sug Night. The Man Who Shot Kian Skretberg. Shins of the Father. Miss Wakefield. Mutual of Amabois. The Texas Panhandler. They Call It Bobby Lev. Hank's Bully. Rich Hank, Poor Hank. Peggy and the Boggle Champ. The Incredible Hank. Propane Boom Part 1. Hank's Backstory. Peggy's Headache. The Unbearable Blindness of Lang. The Wedding of Bobby Hill. The Son That Got Away. As Old as the Hills Part 1. Now Who's the Dummy? Grand Theft Arlen. Hanky Panky Part 1. Bobby Goes Nuts. Spin the Choice. Hank in the Great Glass Elevator. Pilot. Halloween. Leanne Saga. Racist Dog. Returning Japanese Part 1 and 2. Chasing Bobby. John Vitti Return to La Grunda. Iliad A. Peggy's Turtle Song. Hank's Got the Willies. How to Fire a Rifle Without Really Trying. Dog Deal Afternoon. Luann Saga. I Don't Want to Wait for Our Lives to Be Over. I'm not saying the rest of that. Little Horrors of Shop. Pretty Dresses. Keeping Up with Our Joneses. Oh Yeah. The Death of a Propane Salesman. High Anxiety Part 2. Square Peggy. And finally, Hank's Dirty Laundry. Is that a weird one? I don't know. Wow, I want to say that King of the Hill is easily tied with American Dad for the most painless Rankin video I've ever done. This show rocks, even at its worst. Similarly to that show, I want to clarify that any episode near the bottom of my overall list, hell, most episodes in that bottom 50, still have at least something worth enjoying, whether it be an interesting plot, an unseen character dynamic, or funny jokes. Similarly, I want to say the top 100, maybe 150 episodes of this list are all incredibly good. I'm shocked at how strong this show is. Even at its worst, King of the Hill is an incredibly consistent series, with likable characters, a world that feels real, and tons of memorable moments. There's a reason it had such a strong reputation, even despite those later seasons seeing a bit of a drop-off. I think what still kept me engaged, though, was the clever ways in which the series handled its light continuity. Despite things generally staying the same, you look at where the show started and where it's ended, and there's plenty of differences that they naturally weaved in over time. Luann eventually moving out, getting married to Lucky, having a kid, Cotton dying. Hank in general ending the series as a much more open person than he started as. The show never felt tied down, never stagnant. Even concluding running gags I would have assumed were there till the end, like Nancy and John Redcorn's affair. Although I think it's implied they started it back up again during the revival. Sadly, John Redcorn's voice actor Jonathan Joss was shot by his neighbor last year and passed away, and so I'm hoping they decide to just retire the character out of respect. Season 15 comes out in like a month, which will immediately outdate this video, but I'm curious to see where they take things next, especially with Bobby and Connie. And this poster has Hank with a dog leash, which reminded me they never addressed Ladybird dying. Gonna go kill myself. I can easily say I'm not a big fan of King of the Hill, and we'll be checking out its future seasons. However much longer it goes on, I guess we'll see. Can't believe I put off watching it for so long, but that's the great thing about these Rankin videos. I've covered most long-running shows I've seen all of. Well, until I hit you with that 10-hour Grey's Anatomy retrospective. So next, I was thinking of tackling another show I haven't seen much of. Either Adventure Time or Amazing World of Gumball. Let me know what you'd rather see and I'll take it into consideration. I promise it won't take another year to come out. Unless it does.